Hey guys, this is the Cougar. Welcome to a new all-killer episode of Killer POV. Tonight we're joined by a really special guest.
The Fart.
You're listening to Adam Green and Joe Lynch.
Who are you guys? Why are you taking over our show?
It's a mere $40 to take a picture with us. We'll sign whatever you'd like.
Really? Oh my God, we're at a horror convention.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome to Killer POV 43. Episode 43, the first of 2014.
I think we better contextualize that very fast.
Yeah. Let's go around the table. Obviously, I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G. from FEARnet and Icons of Fright. To my left, Elric Kane.
That's me.
Inside Horror.
I'm gonna keep everything brief today because AJ's watching.
To his
he
left
takes my alpha.
is Rebekah McKendry from Fangoria.
Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Hello. And our guests, plural, we're very happy to have.
Just get me out of the way. I'm not even really a guest.
Jesus. All right. So AJ Bowen is co-hosting with us this round because we have Jeremy Gardner, the writer, director, star of The Battery.
Of our collectively favorite film of last year.
Yes.
Hold on before Jeremy says
And the
anything.
reason AJ
How did you guys hear about that movie?
That's why you're here, obviously. Why do you think we invited you back?
You're welcome, Jeremy.
So
I'm kind of tired of AJ talking about me.
he's talked about it more than you have at this point.
Yes.
I had to go back in my mind and go, wait, do I actually like his performances in anything?
What's your
I
favorite?
was like, oh, good, I do.
What is your favorite AJ movie?
Well, no, I mean,
start with that.
I wanted to talk about this. I talk about the fact that I bought The Signal in Walmart because I heard an interview on a creative screenwriting podcast. With Jeff Goldsmith.
We were really, really drunk on that one.
Yeah, but that movie, strangely enough, and I've said this before, that interview was one of the catalysts that I was like, I can fucking do this.
Yeah.
Like, I can do this.
If these
guys
retards can do it.
These fucking guys sound like they just ate a bunch of hamburgers and woke up and decided to make a movie. So I can do this.
Nice.
The Signal was fucking great. And I still have it on my show. I actually thought after you started tweeting at me that I had traded it in at Blockbuster to just buy something new. Because for a while I was just taking, okay, I have 9 DVDs on my shelf I don't care about. I'll take those 9 down. I'll get $14 store credit. I'll buy one DVD I care about. And I was like, oh, I'm sure I traded The Signal in, but no, I kept it. I kept that shit. I kept that shit for inspiration.
Yeah. Cool. Right on. We have a lot of stuff to cover.
Oh my gosh.
But there's a giant wrapped box in front of Jeremy right now. What's the story?
You know what I really screwed? It's just a belated Christmas gift, man.
Christmas gift? You bought him a gift?
I didn't bring any gifts for anyone.
I gave him a T-shirt.
Your presence is
there. You go.
And a
He's
better
got a
I
appearance.
brought him a Fangoria.
She brought me a Fangoria, which is great. Elric gave me not only a T-shirt, his own T-shirt that kind of smelled musty.
It did have a little hole in it.
It smelled a little musty and it had a hole in it. And I was like, perfect. It
smelled like man.
Yeah, it was already worn in.
That's
And
kind of
he gave
hot.
me a chicken sandwich. That's something.
He gave me a
Did you
spicy
like the
chicken
hot-
sandwich.
I kept him alive.
Delicious.
For another
that's
day.
Good.
He made me fatter.
Yeah.
I bought him a beer. That's that counts. You bought
He bought me a
That's what
beer.
the charity going on here.
No,
AJ's
Rob bought
gift.
me a beer after he told me how poor and destitute he was. And he's like, put that on my tab. I'm like, can you not, please?
Past tense. It was fine.
All right.
It was totally
Thank you
fine.
for the beer.
AJ's gift is really nicely wrapped, guys, and it's in a very formal-looking box. I want to
It's
see
not
what's
even
in
that
this.
special.
Open it. Open it in front of
Got
us.
a
this
nice
is just
pretentious
awesome. I don't
bow.
even like opening
I tied
gifts from my family. All right, here we go.
Okay,
Here it
guys.
comes.
Get
Here
in
we
there
go.
close.
AJ, it better be good.
Let's see what's in this
I really
thing.
hope it's
Putting you on the spot.
shoes.
You won't like it, Rob.
Okay,
You wouldn't know what to do with
play-by-play.
it.
He's untying the bow.
Oh, no.
And
Oh,
just like
little
people who make
fumbling with the knot.
people who
The
do
worst
really
podcast
beautiful.
ever. This podcast is so bad right
you
now.
thought
It's just like
you couldn't wait to get me on the show. And
Yeah.
you're like,
Listen,
fuck,
we'll
this is
get
you
back
were
on track in a
dropping
minute.
like flies.
If I had had time, if we weren't in serious prep on this other one, I would have signed a headshot from 8 years ago and put it inside the box. Do you want me to spoil it for you?
It's a box. Hold on. It's a white box.
It's
White box, okay.
We're opening the box.
So, all right. So the gift. It turned out to
shit outta
be a buck knife.
a buck 110 hunter.
Great. Now you both have matching knives.
But we're
Creepy.
honkies.
There's
from
nothing
the
more
South.
beautiful that a man from the South can give another man from the South but a knife.
Now, I know he's from Georgia. Where are you from?
Florida.
Okay. I'm Virginia. Not quite
Go
as south.
dogs.
Go Knowles.
Fuck you.
All righty. So everybody's been introduced, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to talk about the battery, obviously, but what's everyone been doing over the Christmas/New Year's break?
Yeah.
Thinking of you.
Thinking of me. All right.
You really are going to try to be quiet, aren't you? This is going to last like 1 minute.
He's still trying.
I actually took a horror
to restrain himself.
No, I took a break from horror like a couple weeks, just because we do so much on this for the show. Yeah. I took about 2 weeks where I did see Rosemary's Baby on 16 at the cafe, and kind of reminded me why it's one of the best directed films I've ever seen. The way the camera's always anchored to her character perspective constantly, every shot, it's somehow reflecting how she's experiencing the things around her, and it's just a freaking amazingly made film without being it's not a scary film for horror. It's not even especially thrilling, but there's some really interesting choices. And the one thing that struck me this time was John Cassavetes' character, who I remember when I was young, I remember watching going, yeah, he's a little big, or it's a little over the top. Watching it this time, I felt like that character was perfect, and that character felt like I'd like to watch a sequel or remake that movie all from his perspective. How this deal got made? How did some of these decisions get made? And like snap decisions where he's like, "Oh yeah, we're in on this now." Like he just sold out his wife. It fascinated me. It's a really interesting film.
Everybody always talks about Psycho as being like the first modernish horror film or the first modern slasher. But last time I was watching Rosemary's Baby, I was like, this just feels still modern. It feels like it was the first one to like really click into a thing that's sort of been trying to be replicated, duplicated.
And I wondered if that was the having a European director, like somebody who had just come from the new wave.
It is considered to be one of the first postmodern horror films where it doesn't really have the ending that applies. So
actually, it definitely feels fresh.
Once you mentioned it, I have the Criterion version of it on Blu-ray, which I checked out, which is gorgeous. It looks great. And there's a great hour-long documentary on there about it, because I've seen the movie when I was younger, but I didn't really know much about the making of it. And it's funny because in terms of John Cassavetes,
they didn't get along at all.
Yeah, when they started the movie, they were buddies, riding motorcycles together and stuff. And apparently Polanski picked them, like, oh yeah, he'd be great. And then as soon as they started the movie, they just did not get along.
Yeah, what's his line? He said about Cassavetes that any chimp with a camera could have made shadows. Like he literally thought it was an amateur, that you just get a camera and you run around, and that's not filmmaking to him. They just came from different worlds, but
it's pretty crazy.
There's a scene at the end where he sees Rosemary after what he's done, and she walks in and he hasn't seen her, and he looks at her and he stands up and kind of half reaches out, and then he kind of combs his hair back and sits back down with shame. It's one of the best things I've ever seen in the performance. Just like you just go, oh yeah, you got nothing to say. You can't. It's too late.
I'm always shocked that William Castle produced it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until this time watching it.
He wanted to direct it too.
Really wanted to direct it.
It was his legit
love his biographies, and if you read them, some of the most interesting stuff is about his experiences on Rosemary's Baby, because he talks about like they received death threats and things like that. And coming from the showman William Castle, it's given this amazing lens to look at it.
It's the first serious thing he really did, And it is weird how close it echoes what then happens in Roman's life. So I mean, it is weird to make a film with Satanists and things about sacrifice and a baby when that all catches up in his real life. It's just it's eerie. It's weird,
Yeah.
But great film. And that's the only one. Other than that, I've just watched like all the Oscar films, so I was catching up. And I did notice that there was more, like, not gratuitous violence, but it felt like a lot of them were more violent than a lot of horror films. Like watching things like 12 Years a Slave, Captain Phillips, and something else, they all felt pretty extreme. Like I mean, Captain Phillips at times feels like towards the end, like almost like a Saw movie or something. I mean, it's all justified. It's got
that bleak tone,
but
it's
brutal. It's like it's rough. And that's not a criticism. I was just surprised when I was taking this little horror holiday.
Wow.
It was less.
So it wasn't really that much of a horror break.
It wasn't that much of a horror break, no. But it was good, and it was good. Now there's some good stuff out there. I like 12 Years a Slave and her both. Her Dick Grunert, who once said hers 30 minutes too long. Exactly right. If that film was a little shorter, I think it was a great movie in there. It's just a little too long.
I haven't even seen her, and nothing Spike Jonze ever does will ever be too long.
Yeah, might be true. And 12 Years a Slave surprised me. It's sometimes these Oscar movies come out, but because Steve McQueen's such a good director, like Hunger was the best film I saw the year that came out. I didn't like his Sex Fassbender film as much, even though it was good. But like 12 Years a Slave is really like an incredible. Compare it to Lincoln, and it's like Lincoln's a flaccid penis compared to this film. I mean, it's really this. I'm sorry, it's like they're about the same.
You're either disrespecting a great president or Daniel Day-Lewis.
He's good.
Or Spielberg.
He's pretty good.
I'm not
All
familiar
of the
with
above.
Spielberg.
Yeah.
But it's a powerful movie, and it's made in a very modern way. So it feels very live. It doesn't feel like you're watching dated history. It feels like you're watching a tragedy that's happening right now that just happens to be in the past.
But does it feel like misery porn as it's getting, everyone's saying it?
Really?
Just,
But that one, I haven't heard that, no.
I keep hearing that.
No, because there's quite a lot of hope. There's he's just a strong character. The guy, he's a survivor. So I didn't feel that way.
None of these movies beat Mud for me.
Nope.
Yeah.
I am bored by every single one they've been discussing so far.
You haven't seen any of them.
Yeah, I haven't.
I'm sorry.
There's a reason though. Like I look at something like 12 Years a Slave and I'm like, eh.
Wait, AJ, hold on. Are we real? Mud is my favorite movie of the year. Is it really? Are you
Yeah, my
fucking
number
kidding
one.
me?
Yeah, he's
God
decent,
damn
though.
it. We're like twinsies, man. It's so stupid.
McConaughey's great all year,
Jeff Nichols is great.
You look good.
Thanks, baby.
Is this the first time you guys are meeting today?
About what,
officially
3
in
hours
person?
ago?
Yeah, a couple hours ago.
That's kind of crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
We dirty text each other.
Right. So it's like you know
course.
each other already.
Yeah.
Right. All right, let's see. The one thing I wanted to bring up since the last show, because we had such a big pivotal role in it, is back in late December, there was a screening at the New Beverly of Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. We got Lee Harry. We haven't talked about it yet. We got Lee Harry, the director, to show up and agree to show up on our show. So
And
that was kind of huge.
Obviously harboring a big secret that week.
Yes and no. I knew about it sort of, but the whole point is that there was just a lot of, I don't know why this hasn't happened before, but there's just a lot of buzz around the Silent Night, Deadly Night movies in general. The idea that the first one got put out again by Fangoria. Part 2 is going to play at the New Bev. We talked to the director of Part 2. John Squires did a huge retrospective on
Freddy
all 5 films, Freddy in Space, for FEARnet. And kind of the linchpin in his retrospective is that he found Eric Freeman, or
Which Rob and I have honestly been trying to do for a couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of
And bloggers, there's a lot of stuff out
There's
there.
been a lot of hunting.
So I'm not sure why or how this all kind of came about, but obviously when John did that retrospective, he put Lee, after hearing Lee on our show, and Eric in touch with each other. So they were talking the whole week leading up to the screening. And I feel like, I think Eric was in the same position where he may be a little embarrassed by the movie and doesn't understand why people like it. Yeah. But he made a surprise appearance at the very last minute. And literally,
it's because everyone thought he lived in North Carolina,
right?
right?
Door at midnight.
That means that one of you guys, I think it was Elric that said it. Elric kept saying he lives in LA. He's got to live in LA.
Yeah, and remember, Lee was here, and Lee, it was after we stopped taping. We couldn't tell people because we didn't want to, get in Eric's business or whatever. But after our episode with Lee finished, I said, he's got to be in LA. Like, is that why he doesn't come out? Because if he lived in North Carolina, he wouldn't care. Yeah. He must live in LA. And Lee just looked up and go, yeah, that's got to be it. And so I didn't really know, but everyone had been saying he lived in North Carolina, and then suddenly he obviously lived here. It makes sense because you don't want to be mobbed in a city like this, I guess.
Yeah.
But
So he was here, and they showed up for the screening, and it was fun. I'd say it was like a third full as opposed to, because last year they paired it up with Black Christmas, the original, and it was packed house. Everybody, both movies played fantastic. The coolest thing about it, honestly,
Black Christmas, one of your
AJ's
favorites.
my favorite
And I know
horror
it's
my favorite.
Actually, I should tell. I keep pointing.
You keep pointing. Dick is
Dick is
actually
in the room.
My number
There's
one.
a guy
One
called
of our biggest fans
Dick.
and supporters.
I love it. We have a live in studio audience
We have a guy
today.
No, he's been listening from the start. Dick Renner. He comes to all our events, and he's a really good guy. And he writes for Adventure Time, the show. And he's a good filmmaker, and he's a great trivia buff.
He's
and
really mean.
He's really mean. He didn't like Jeremy's film. I showed the battery at jump cut, and he didn't come and didn't love it and didn't want to come to meet Jeremy. So mean. There you go. Yeah.
It's the complete
But
opposite
he's
of
in
all
studio
that.
with us today, hanging out.
He won't get on the mic, though. I asked him to do a super fan question, and he shrugged.
We'll keep working on that.
Anyway.
So the screening went really well. It was really cool to see them all there. The best thing about it, honestly, was how much I was waiting in line out front, and the guy in front of me was Scott Pliskin, who's one of our listeners. We just started chit-chatting about Silent Night, Deadly Night and the movie and everything, and he told me he was a listener. Just as I sat down, there was a gentleman named Daniel right in front of me that got up, and he's like, hey, man, I listen to Killer POV. I came here because you guys talked about the movie last week.
So both of our listeners. In the same room with you.
Wait, Scott Pliskin, not Snake Pliskin?
His photo is Snake.
That's the name he goes by, man.
It's pretty cool.
I'm not going to question it. But it was really cool to meet those guys, and thanks for coming up and saying hello and coming out to the screening. It was awesome.
So over break, there are 3 things that I watched that were kind of, some way. Are you stealing my cheat sheet again?
No.
Okay. AJ's cleaning up the table a little bit. So the first one I saw and the one that is most notable was Marked Ones. Has anybody else here?
Oh, the new Paranormal Activity?
Yeah, Paranormal Activity,
spoilers.
Marked Ones. No spoilers. I will say that I have not enjoyed most of the previous Paranormal Activity.
This is why I love having Dick in the studio, because he's like, oh, this is going to be like another Dark Sky situation. I'm just going to nod
So
no.
Rebecca's about to tell you that Marked Ones is better than 12 Years a Slave, which she hasn't seen. So here it comes.
Enjoy. I am about to say that I actually found Marked Ones to not be terrible.
Ringing endorsement.
I liked. I can't say it was great.
It wasn't
I
great.
can't say it was. It was good. It was good.
As good as number 3. I thought number 3 was fun. Number 3 is the most fun because it's a period one.
Number 3 was fun for me. I did not like 4 because that was the one with the weird video game. 4 kind of lost it for me. I wasn't too into 2, but 3 I liked because it was a period piece and it was involving the kids a lot more. But this one, it's almost more of a comedy. And it's kind of weird because it's much more comedic, but it goes into a couple of new areas. So I recommend it. If you like the prior Paranormal Activities, definitely check this one out.
Can I see it if I've seen none of the other ones? Because I've only seen the first one.
Yes, it is a complete. There might be light mythology links, but not enough to hold you back. Because I was never that addicted enough to follow the mythology and how they're connected and, enough to really care. But I was still following this one perfectly well without remembering whose relation and things like that.
I really like mise-en-scène, so I generally avoid those films.
But doesn't it break the lockdown? The lockdown.
What just happened?
I don't know what just happened.
That was like a body slam.
But this one breaks the lockdown kind of surveillance-y.
It does.
Yeah, it's more of like a traditional found footage where they're filming each other while they're kind of walking down the street and shit.
Yeah,
okay.
it's like a whole movie. And the big thing that all the marketing was kind of interested in is this one is a Hispanic group.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of roots it in Hispanic culture. And that definitely adds a little bit of nice difference from the other ones. You're no longer looking at a white suburban couple with their 2 kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was good.
Does it beat End of Watch?
I have not seen End of Watch.
End of Watch has 2 sequences that are the best found footage sequences I've seen. There's a fire scene in there, and there's one other sequence that are just so beautifully shot for that aesthetic, which is an anti-aesthetic at the time.
This is the second time today somebody has said
End of Watch is
anti-watch.
good. End of Watch.
I haven't seen Marked Ones, but from looking at the trailer, it looked like they're sort of trying to jump on because it did well, and of course, it had Gyllenhaal in it, but and
gang culture and stuff.
Yeah, it seemed like aesthetically like it was sort of veering into, and so it was strange to me to see that it's not got a proper number in front. I'm confused already that it's not Paranormal Activity 5.
Right. No, it's a side story.
Yeah,
because they're still going to do a 5. Yeah,
5 is coming out later this year.
So they'll write the script and start shooting that in July.
Any day now. Yeah.
I think it's smart to do that because I wish Saw had done that. I wish Saw wasn't a continuous storyline because that storyline bored me.
It's not the first time that they've done this. Paranormal Activity already released Paranormal Activity Tokyo Nights.
Right.
Which
what?
There's a Tokyo
Drift of
Tokyo sequel.
It's licensed by Paramount. It's still owned by the same people, but it was released only in Asia and Europe, and it never made it over here. And I liked it so much better than Paranormal Activity 2. It's much more subtle.
It's the same time as 2, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to be at the same time, and they were released around the same time. But yeah, I have a copy of it, but it's an Asian bootleg. Or not bootleg, it's a region.
Oh.
So it's region.
I've never wanted to talk about zombies more, so I'm just going to hold it in for a little longer. I'm going to hold it for a little longer.
I don't want to talk about it at all.
So I also checked out Haunter. Did anybody else see this one yet? Vincenzo Natali's new film. I'm such a huge fan of Cube and and Splice and things like that. This one, it's like the first 2/3 of the movie, I loved it, and then it just completely fell apart in the third act for me.
Splice? You're talking about Splice?
No, I'm talking about Haunter.
No, it sounded like you.
No,
okay.
Hey, I love the third act of Splice.
Everyone else disses it. I actually am a big fan of that.
No, when it gets into the weird rapey gender crossing thing in Splice. Yeah,
that's
where
Haunter.
I'm a little bit like,
the
awkward,
actor in Haunter,
Abigail Breslin.
The guy from Pontypool.
Yeah, same. Yeah, Abigail Breslin.
No, what's his name? The guy from he's from History of Violence and Pontypool. He is a great Canadian.
Yeah, I'm just going to say Scott.
Scott.
Dick will find out.
Okay,
Our
Scott.
fact checker, Dick. His name is not Scott,
Oh my
but
God.
he's a good actor. Now, was he a ghost or a goblin?
I don't even know which character this is. There were only two guys.
Was he a ghost or a goblin?
This film was so small, contained. It was literally like, it was very cube-like in that sense where the entire thing.
Yeah, Stephen McCaddy.
He was
Boom.
the ghost.
Yeah, that's what I said.
He was
Told
the
you,
ghost.
Scott.
He's coming to every show now.
It's like the whole thing, it takes place inside of one house and no one, and I'll give you the setup just because the setup is what sold me and had me there for the first 2/3 of the movie. It is a family in a house and they can't leave. And the girl is living the same day over and over, but no one else in the house realizes it. And there's this ghostly apparition guy who kind of appears and tells her to stop telling her family, that they just have to keep going with the flow. And if she talks about it again, he's going to hurt her. And he starts doing really messed up things where one morning she'll wake up and her whole family will be dead. And then the next morning, the whole day starts over again.
She's pitching Drew's film.
So, Drew's film?
Yeah, that film.
There's a film?
You mean Stewart's?
Oh, really?
It's already been made, guys. It's called Haunter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, I'm attached to
You're
two
attached
scripts
to
like
two
that.
films that are exactly what you...
Yeah, it's already been made, guys. It's called Haunter. It's got Abigail Breslin and some guy named Scott in it.
You mean Abigail Breslin of Signs fame?
Yes.
That one. Oh, damn.
There it
boom.
is.
Not
Brought
a
it back
zombie
to
film, guys. We
Signs.
can't talk about it.
But there's a lot of Signs fans in this room.
And I am
except
not a
for
Signs
one.
fan, so I'm getting shit for it.
Oh, no.
So,
You're not
Elric,
a
you
fan
with me,
either?
darling?
Me and you can
Okay,
join
okay.
forces this time. I
Whatever.
didn't hate it. I just hated every other film he made after.
Yeah.
After. That's
After. It was
whatever.
a transition
It
to
just
shit.
didn't do it for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
It just
right.
it wasn't for me. But then the other
Though I
thing
love
that
Mel.
I did over Christmas break, I
love him.
binge watched Supernatural. So
I love him.
I'm catching up on that. And so I'll wait till I'm kind of done because I only have like 2 more seasons to go. But for something that I never heard of.
God did it. I just
God
ruined it
did
for you.
it?
God
Oh,
did
really?
it.
Damn
You get
it.
the last episode and God
Guy's
did
doing
it.
everything. No, it was last trivia night, Buzz, because I did the Buffy category. And
yeah.
afterward, Buzz came up and he was like, you have to do a Supernatural category. And that wasn't a Buzz impersonation by any means.
No.
And he came up and told me I had to do a Supernatural category. And I was like, I've never even watched the show. And he told me I had to. So I
God
went
damn it. Are you
home.
saying I have to rewatch the show for this next trivia night?
No,
Is that-
no, I need to finish before
Okay.
I can
All right.
do
My
a trivia category.
close personal friend was on that show.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I hear you guys are in a movie together.
I don't know what you're talking about, but
okay.
my very, very close friend, Jim Beaver.
Yeah, from Deadwood, yeah. I remember you
Yeah.
guys knew each other for a long time.
Yeah.
He's my best friend.
Yeah.
I think you've known him as long as I've known Jeremy in person.
You guys are making my teeth hot.
There's so many in jokes on tonight's episode
That
will
that
make
you should
sense
probably turn it
So
off.
that was my Christmas break.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, you know, Supernatural's fun right up, and I don't know, when they started doing too much of the God and angel stuff, I
Oh
start
man, that you were
losing.
being serious?
No, God didn't do it. I'm just saying there's a lot of angel stuff. Once they get there, it's just
You're
a
past
little
all
less
that.
interesting.
I am.
You're,
To me.
what season are you up to?
I'm at 6 now.
Yeah, that's
I
great.
didn't catch like a huge amount of. I mean, there was some
There's a lot of
religious
angel
overtones,
stuff.
but I mean, it gets more into demonology than anything. That would
Not
if
when
it
I
was.
The first
more-
3 maybe. Or,
Okay.
Season
Maybe
5.
I'm only on 5.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I got up to 5, and 5 is when it pretty much comes down to all the angels and
You know what's funny?
the
Is
devil
it
and
Sam
God.
Dean? Dean. I remember watching.
Dean.
We're going to talk about soon. Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And thought he was the most. I hadn't seen Supernatural, and I was living in New Zealand still before I moved out here, and I thought it was the most boring performance I'd ever seen. And I was like, "Who cast this guy? This guy is fucking like wallpaper. He's one of the worst actors ever." And then I moved here and I watched Supernatural, and I was like, "Man, this guy has so much charisma. He is awesome. He is a great he's just a fun actor to watch.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
he's awesome sauce. And I was really surprised. And it
He's
just
great on the
shows
show.
that, you know, miscasting, or when people aren't given something, you know, they can only do what they get. You know what I mean? And I just thought that was an interesting lesson, because he was a guy I really just thought was, who's this guy? So
But
boring.
he wasn't even in Valentine's Day.
He wasn't?
No, he was in a movie called My Bloody Valentine 3D, though.
Thanks, AJ.
There you go.
You're going to hear about it from somebody that actually watch horror movies that listen to this
that's
podcast.
true.
Unlike you.
Iwa-woo-wa. Sit back down, Iwa-woo-wa.
So, but we're here tonight to talk about zombies.
Whoa, we don't
Yes.
get to talk about
wait,
what we've
what
watched?
did you guys watch over
Yeah.
Christmas break or Hanukkah
And your whole
break
life.
or
No, we have to
whatever?
go your whole life.
Your
Well-
whole life
First horror film.
in the beginning.
First
3,
horror
2,
film?
1,
Yeah,
first horror
let's
film.
do that
The
first.
Hills Have Eyes.
Oh, nice.
And even worse than that, 4 years old, living in
wow.
a trailer in Florida. I hear a commotion. I
shit.
get up. My father is watching The Hills Have Eyes in the living room. I sit down on the couch with him, and I'm seeing horror unfold before me.
This is the original, right?
The original.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
Just making sure you're not, like,
1985 or
86.
'86.
Really old.
And he decides that moment was the moment he decided that I was old enough and man enough to know that one day I was going to die. Son, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Mommy's going to die. I'm going to die. While fucking Hills Have Eyes
That's
is
pretty
playing.
While you're in a trailer, which is creepy.
And then through mutant rape.
And I just I cried until I passed out from exhaustion.
Oh my God.
And I think that's why I have existential dread every moment of my life.
Wow, that's incredible.
So
wow, that explains it all.
First one. But what I watched recently. Okay, so I saw Millennium Bug finally.
Oh yeah. All practical effects, right?
Somebody gave it to me at a festival, and I was like, oh, it was like this is the all practical effects mecca, and yeah, it was pretty cheesy and tried to go way beyond its budget.
But it's not CG, right?
There's no CG.
Fun.
But I never thought I would see a practical movie where I was like, yes, there's no CG, and then I was like, man, I wish they just used some CG. Just like a little CG.
Just a little bit.
My wife's sister's dad is the old guy in that film.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. There's an old guy with a beard,
and that's him. There's a lot of weird people.
I haven't seen it. I just know he's in it.
I saw After. I saw it in Malaga, Spain, at a festival, and it was like two people are on a bus, and then they get into a bus crash. The guy's like flirting with a girl on the bus, and then they get into a bus crash, and then they wake up, and they're the only people in the town. Everybody's gone. And they like drive to the edge of town. There's this big fog, this like wall of like darkness that's like coming in on the town. And then they slowly realize, this is not a spoiler, but they realize that they're in a coma and they need to wake up before they die.
That couldn't sound more like a spoiler if you tried.
It's like
it sounds like the biggest spoiler ever.
You know it in the fucking. You know it from. You know it in the goddamn blurb.
Okay.
It's called After?
But again, yeah, it's called After. But again, I felt like it was one of those movies that like the story was cool, the acting was great, but they just tried to go beyond their budget a little bit too much, like with effect. I mean, you're talking about effects. There's a creature in the smoke and shit like that. And then I saw Kiss of the Damned.
Ooh, that's
sexy.
Yeah, right. I fucking hated it.
Oh, really? You didn't like it?
No, I didn't hate it, but I've heard a lot of love for it on the show, and I was just like, this is like, yeah, I would have loved this if I had written it as a 15-year-old. Just sexy vampires, fucking yeah. And then like the whole story is like wrapped up by just like, oh, like something, I'm not going to ruin it, but something happens and then doesn't have any, there's no like showdown, right? You set up this dynamic between these two sisters and then something happens to one of them and the other one's like, let's just go to France.
But that's how it's done in Europe, buddy. That's how they roll. They just travel.
It's very much a Jean Roland film.
Yeah. I thought it was better than a Jean Roland
summary.
film. More fun. But yeah.
I mean, it was propulsive and engaging, but then I was just like, oh man, like.
Yeah, but did you see Mila Ventimiglia? He was very handsome in it.
Yeah, he was handsome.
He was.
In the shower scene.
He had an angular jawline.
AJ likes those things.
Killer soundtrack, too.
So that's what I saw. I don't remember what else I saw. I saw Anchorman 2.
And were you? I assume you're allowed to mention you're in L.A., nothing to do with the Battery. You're here acting in a movie I saw you guys tweet about last night, so I assume you can...
Yeah. I came out to shoot a small role in the Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead's follow-up to Resolution Spring, which they shot the bulk of in Italy this winter and had a couple days to shoot back here in LA. So they offered me a role and flew me out, and I had a blast working with Lou Taylor Pucci and the rapper Cage and Vinny from Resolution, and we had a really fucking fun time. So that was cool.
Cool.
So look forward to that.
Sounds good.
Right on.
I want to see that movie.
You can't.
I want to see it.
You will soon.
Now. Zombies.
Did AJ not watch anything?
He's trying to move the show.
You watched The Battery.
Never mind.
AJ watched The Battery.
The Battery
and
is a good
Fulci
movie.
films.
You should watch it. BitTorrent, it's the easiest way to go.
And cheaper.
There's so many of them out there.
Zombies.
No, did you say anything you want to mention?
Well, hearing him talk, like I just sound like a dickhead for mentioning this, but I also got to travel to a film festival out of the States. I was the first time I got to go to Sitges, and this was a while back. This was like October. But I was reminded that I saw a movie there, and I don't know if it's out, but I saw it like coming off of a 19-hour flight. It's a German film called The Station. And have you seen it?
Nope.
I love this movie. It's like it's practical, and it's like a mix between The Thing and Alien. There's a lot of aesthetic components to it, but it's fucking super rad. And I should have wanted to hate it because seriously, I got off a 19.5-hour flight, then an hour drive from Barcelona down to Sitges, and went straight in to watch it on no sleep, and I was just blown away by it. I would say that, honestly, just look away. I would say that outside of the battery, I would say that that's probably the like genre film, that and Resolution were the genre films I saw this year. I was like,
sci-fi horror?
Yeah.
Cool.
The Station.
And I haven't even heard of it, so we'll have to look it up.
This is definitely not on our radar.
Okay.
Cool.
So,
I rewatched The Crazies.
Which one?
That's right, yeah.
Original or remake?
Original. I rewatched The Crazies and Argento's Opera.
Yeah, he came in with Drew Daywalt to do our little commentary thing at FEARnet. So.
I'm taping mine
Is that up
tomorrow
yet?
morning. Bright and
Is that
early.
Not yet. That'll be, I think, in later in the month or February. I'm still trying to get the schedule together.
I'm doing Zombie and Dead and Buried tomorrow morning.
With Dave Parker.
Dave Parker.
Nice. That should be fun.
Yes.
Dave Parker, who, while we're here, we might as well not wait till the end. His film, this is going to play after.
Yeah, this will be after the screening.
Yeah, forget it.
We're
playing his next movie, Hills Are Red, for the film festival thing we're doing, and we're playing it on Thursday.
Cold Water. You said Hills Are Red.
No, I'm saying his previous film.
Oh, yeah.
We're playing it. But, Cold Water. No, actually, this is relevant because it will play online for one day in February.
Oh, well, really? Okay, cool.
So that's the whole point of the festival. This is like this is just having a big party.
Right.
Having photos and good panel,
right.
But it will be in the past.
We will link you the day that Cold Water is up on this film festival's website for the day. So,
zombies. What do we define zombies as?
That's
for the conversation, because it's so broad. If we're going like, oh, they got hit with the virus and they run around like mindless creatures, is that a zombie or is it an undead creature?
Yeah, because I also included some voodoo ones, and I was like, I don't know.
That's where the word comes from. Yeah, that's the word.
That's like the origin of zombie, but that's not what we perceive it anymore. Like I put Serpent in the Rainbow on my list, but I was like, I don't know.
I mean, that's the definition.
It's not where we are with them today.
I think zombie is like the really pure distilled metaphor for genre in general. Like I made a zombie movie. Like people said that we were riffing on The Crazies, as a matter of fact, and some people would say that Romero wasn't making a zombie film, but I would disagree with them on that. I would say that The Crazies is entirely a zombie film. So for me, it's like most of these zombie stories end up being satirical. The one that we made was really a response to the Bush re-election and to media oversaturation. So I feel like it's just a really...
Like Joe Dante's Homecoming was a great...
Yeah.
But
that was very overt.
I was going to say that wasn't an analogy. That just
wasn't satire.
was.
Yeah, that wasn't subtle. But yeah, I think it seems to be something to do with like mindless people who are not in control of their faculties, who are attacking humankind, maybe eating, maybe not, maybe just killing and devour. It seems like it fits better because that's the type.
Right. I feel like there's the difference is that the definition of a zombie is completely separate from whether a movie is a zombie movie or not.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how you get into the 28 Days Later argument, which everybody always fucking gets into.
Yeah. Right.
And that's a zombie movie.
Yeah, totally. It's a
Flat
pointless.
out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And same with The Signal.
Because
if you're being controlled, you're mindless, you're a zombie.
But you're riffing on the elements of a genre that's been already established. That is a zombie movie top to toe.
Yeah.
Whether or not those things that are infected virals are dead, undead or not, that's not the point.
So really, it's just an aesthetic argument, just like the same thing we do now with found footage.
Yeah.
Well, is it found footage? It cuts away.
Docu-aesthetic.
That's just marketing.
I mean, the Serpent in the Rainbow is based on a real journalistic story, and the thing about the word, I think the word zombie kind of comes from seeming mindless but still existing, not necessarily being dead. And that film, I remember what was interesting about it was genuinely creepy. Is they were coming up with a drug, and this is a real thing. This is why
tetrodotoxin.
Yeah, where you just appeared like you've passed on, and then you're buried, and then by the time, if you claw your way out of the grave, once you come to any kind of sense that you're alive, you're going to probably have lack of air and be basically brain dead by the time you reemerge. So there was cases of people being found walking the streets, and that's fascinating to me, to call that person a zombie. They're not going to attack a human necessarily, but that's that idea of a mindless being as a zombie, I think is enough. Because there's just so many movies we can, a Fulci zombie is not a Romero zombie, which is not, a 28 Days Later
Remember
zombie.
back in the simple days when the argument about whether or not it was a zombie film was whether or not they were fast?
Yeah.
Well, those run.
Slow
They
or
can't be
fast?
zombies.
What do you find creepier? I find the shuffling zombie creepier because it just keeps coming.
It just depends on what the movie is.
The fast, I'm just like, it's going to run.
I got to disagree with you because I remember when I had just started working for Fango actually when 28 Days Later came out, and it was one of the first screenings I went to, and I remember sitting there thinking, okay, it's a zombie movie. Holy fuck, they're running. And it like threw me for
a loop. But that's because it's new. It's because it's new. But I'm talking about if first time you're watching, say, Night of the Living Dead, for the first time, and you're just like, these things just keep coming. And there's a lot of them, and they just keep coming.
Sure. So the difference is fast zombies are awesome. I like fast zombies. But it's kinetic. It's like, here we go. I'm going to get into sports here. It's the difference between football and baseball. Football's kinetic. You're pushed along by a kinetic energy that is constantly propulsive. That is what the fast zombies are. The slow zombies. The first zombie movie I saw was strangely enough, the remake of Night of the Living Dead, the Tony Todd movie, the Tom Savini movie.
I have a note in my thing saying the first thing I saw was the remake before the original. I literally wrote that word for word.
That's the
first one I saw.
It colored how I saw zombies.
I saw it when I was like 10 years old on HBO in the middle of the night, and I was terrified.
Yeah, I love that remake, by the way.
Yeah, it was a great
really
remake.
Solid one.
But there was something about it to me, and I've already talked about my existential dread, that was like, this is a thing that's going to slowly continue to come after you, and it's not going to stop until it eventually gets you. That to me was the definition of like facing your mortality. If something's chasing me, my adrenaline's pumping and I'm running. If I know something's just going to slowly creep up on me and get me eventually, that's too much for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's weird. Do you guys all remember? Yeah, quickly. Do you remember your first zombie film? What you might have seen as the first one?
Yeah. The original Night of the Living Dead.
Okay. First time on TV or?
Because he's cultured.
Yeah.
No, I'm just 36.
I also saw the colorized version before the black and white. Like it was on TV color. So I thought that was normal. Like as a kid, I'm like, oh, the colors are a little crazy. He's green, but I liked it. I thought it was cool. But now
I probably totally backwards.
I did totally backwards. Definitely Savini's was first.
Black and white.
And I saw that, I think the same week I saw, I don't care what the name of the movie, I mean, I know what the name of the movie is, but it's only ever going to be Zombie versus Shark to me. I saw that on the same day.
Oh, weird.
And it freaked me out because I had recently seen Jaws 3D and I was like, holy fucking shit, there's an actor wrestling a shark. Yeah. And that's just how the Italians are fucked up, man.
You know that guy, his name is Romero or Roman. Yeah, something like that. His job, like he did, if you look over his IMDb, he has like 30 different jobs or listings for films, and all he ever did was wrestle sharks.
That's cool.
That's awesome.
Like,
I love that there's a guy for that. Like, let's get that wrestling.
And he was like underwater photographer, but he would film sharks. So that was like his big thing is he would wrestle or film sharks.
That's rad.
His entire career.
He sold that punch too.
Yeah.
He didn't pull that back. That was like...
What's weird is I was listening because I have to do my commentary. So I've been doing all this research on it. And I found a couple of different sources, including an interview with Fulci where he addresses that guy as the shark trainer. Like that was his role on Crew. And then I was like, how do you fucking train a shark? Yeah. It's not like you can give him like kibble and,
Yeah, so, can I interject? Trainer. Can I interject with a stupid... So Jugface, Chad Kinkle.
I liked that movie.
I love that movie.
And that was in my top 10 from this year.
Chad Kinkle is one of the nicest Southern sweetheart gentlemen you'll ever meet. And he made that weird fucking Pit movie. It's awesome. So we met him for the first time in Scotland. And we were going to meet him at the bar later. And so he's like, oh, I'll give you my number and you guys can email me or text me. So Christian and I, my DP, were like, let's just pretend we accidentally CC'd him on an email chain for a show we're making about hammerhead sharks. So we CC'd Chad Kinkle on like 15 emails. And it was like, look, like Nev Campbell's not going to do the show unless it's about the conservation of sharks. And I'm like, okay, go back to Stars and tell them that we can do it. We'll call it Hammers. We'll just call it Hammers, and we'll get that guy from Daytona who like rides their fins, and he'll and Chad. We were like so excited we're gonna get there because we sent him 15 emails about this like fake hammerhead shark show called Hammerhead Cove. We had all these names, and we get there and we see him looking at his phone, but he never mentions it for hours. A day goes by, and then I'm finally like, Chad, what the fuck? Like, we're trying to fuck with you with the hammerhead shark thing. And he's like, oh, I just didn't want to say anything to you guys. I felt bad that I was on an email that I wasn't supposed to get. And I was like, ruin the joke, man. You're too kind. He's that much of a Southern gentleman. He refused to acknowledge that he was on the fake hammerhead.
That's hilarious.
So, what was your first zombie film?
You know what? It's funny because I have this very vague memory that, like, it ties in simultaneously. Honestly, the thing that really opened me up to horror, now that I really break it down, Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, yeah.
I was super, super young, super impressionable.
Scary when you're a kid.
It
really
scared
surprisingly
the shit
scary.
out of me.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing I loved about it, I think I wrote about this because I think was it the 30th anniversary just passed or something like that? But the thing I'd watch it all the time. I was super young, but I'd watch the making of. And I mean, that's the first time you see dudes like John Landis as a director or Rick Baker doing the makeup. And I remember that was the first time I saw a tiny bit of An American Werewolf in London. And that scared me, the whole London, kind of thing. But yeah, just the idea of zombies coming out of the grave. And I always walk over to my grandma's house down the block, and their backyard was a cemetery. It was connected to a cemetery. So I just vaguely remember seeing Thriller, being in my grandma's house, and then I think watching on her TV Return of the Living Dead. And then, it's night, it's foggy. I like right outside her back window is just a foggy cemetery. And I remember just being terrified about the whole thing. And I think that was really my first introduction into just zombies in general, like the living dead.
You know what's weird? I couldn't listen to that on the radio. I must have been 8 or 9, or maybe less than 8, probably 6 or something whenever that came out. And I couldn't, Vincent Price's voice.
Yeah.
And this is ridiculous now because I think of Vincent Price as a campy kind of voice. At that point, I found his voice so scary that I had to turn it off. Otherwise, I would just be freaked out if I was alone on the radio. And it's not even on TV, just hearing that on the radio. That's a lot of power. And I think horror has such a power when we're young.
Yeah.
And I miss that. I miss that feeling of watching a horror film and feeling something really just overwhelming.
Yeah, I was 7 because it was 30 years ago. So it's it's crazy.
Yeah,
but that's the first thing I remember in terms of the dead. I didn't get to the Romero stuff until way later.
Mine was Return of the Living Dead by far. My parents owned it and had the Betamax sitting on the shelf. And one night I snuck it and watched it. And
I think them talking about it at the beginning, how that Night of the Living Dead is based on a real story. Yeah. That's how I think I first heard about Night of the Living Dead was through Return of the Living Dead. And you're like, oh shit, really? Yeah. I believe this.
So that was the very, very first one I saw. But yet, and this happened a couple of years ago, I used to have flashbacks to this zombie film of my youth that I watched way too young. And I went over to a neighbor's house, and she was babysitting me, and her son was watching this horror film, and it was a zombie film, and it scared the crap out of me. I only saw a scene, and I used to have flashbacks to it, and I kept describing it to people, and somebody finally told me it was Tombs of the Blind Dead. Oh. And so then I went back and watched Tombs of the Blind Dead. I watched the whole series, and that's exactly what it was. So that one definitely kind of affected me from a really, really young point.
It's my first one was World War Z, but what?
That's good.
No, I mean and its power. But
what's funny is that is going to be some kid's first interpretation.
But I met a guy, and he said the sad thing to me is zombies scared the shit out of me when I was a kid, and now my kids, there are cartoon zombie characters, and there are hero zombie characters, and they don't react to them with the same kind of instant fear that I did.
Yeah, no, that's because zombie films have jumped the zombie versus shark.
It's weird. I was thinking about the zombies, though. They're kind of like, when you think about it, it's like kind of besides the fact of Jesus coming back, they're like the ultimate anti-Christian ideal, because the ideal is there's an afterlife and there's a place we all go. And here we are returning, but no longer with apparently our soul, and we're attacking ourselves. When you just look at the basics, it's a creepy fucking idea. When the first zombie films were emerging, it's a really scary idea. And now we're saturated like any trend, and especially something like Walking Dead, because it's so popular, it means we're seeing it. I don't know. I feel like it's a hard thing to continually reinvent. People keep trying little shades on different things. Like the Wreck films are a little different, but are they that different than the 28 Days Later films? They're fast.
See, I just don't know if you need to reinvent it. That's the thing. It's just like it's like Western. Westerns are always dead. Once you get a Western with good characters and an interesting story, then the trappings of the Western genre are there for comfort. Right. Like, I'm in this thing that I know. Right. And then you're telling me an interesting story.
And it saves a lot of time because you can get to the heart of your story.
Yes, you already know the rules. Yeah. And I don't see any reason to have to keep switching it up.
I don't think they need to either. But the people, they keep doing it.
They keep
suddenly
trying.
Warm Bodies. Hey, let's make one where he falls in love and develops,
I was on this A&E special a couple of years ago. That's my shameless plug for the night.
Boom.
I was on an A&E special a couple of years ago called Zombies, a Living Legend. Check it out, guys. I was one of the talking heads. But the point that the reason that they brought me in was they wanted me to talk about zombies across cultures. And that's one thing that I'm always fascinated by is we don't have to keep reinventing zombies. Everyone else has done that. There is not a single culture on the planet that does not have some form of zombie. And they might go by different names and they might be, different interpretations, but eating the dead, coming back from the grave to feast or kill human living people is in every culture.
So aren't vampires just zombies?
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing.
I talk about that.
Like legit, it was something that I was thinking about because we were talking about certain movies. I'm like, well, wait, hold up. That's basically, there's a lot of stuff that that's cross-pollinated at this point where I'm like, wait, were those zombies or were they fucking vampires? I can't remember. What's the fucking difference anymore?
Stakeland blurs that line a lot.
It does. Yeah. And there's...
vampires seem to have their faculties. I haven't seen a zombie film where they're really intelligent.
If you're talking about, though, like World War Z style, like silly, big budget studio stuff, a few minutes back, I was thinking about I Am Legend, the obvious, like the 35th remake.
Which really blurs the lines.
Right. And so they act like... And you could say, well, vampires have an intelligence and zombies don't. But I mean, Romero even skipped that with Land of the Dead and was trying to with Day of the Dead, showing them But that's like I Am Legend. I know they're officially vampires. Right. But in that movie, what's the difference except that they're just zombies that come out at night? Because it's really what it just felt very much like a lot of the movies that we're discussing.
And
like
the Charlton Heston version doesn't play them as vampires. It plays them more zombie-like.
Yeah.
Except, but they are intelligent in his one. Yeah, the leader especially. It seems like they're at different levels. But yeah, I agree. Well, the supernatural in general does blur.
Plus, I mean, if you look at all the different cultural stuff, I mean, certain creatures will just eat bones, and certain creatures will just eat teeth, and certain ones will just eat your lymph node glands. And I mean, but they all come back to this consumption of the human living
and the really
body.
Smart zombie films, like Dead Snow, where they can survive Nazis. Everyone just doesn't take me seriously.
Jesus Christ!
Actually, I borderline hate that film.
I
don't like zombie films. I'll tell you why I don't. I wrote down I don't like zombie comedies.
No, but you like Lords of Salem.
No, well, yeah, okay. But I wrote down on paper that I didn't like zombie comedies, and then I realized I like a whole bunch.
Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah, no, I like a whole bunch, and so it's stupid. But what I realized is I don't like it when it's just like a shameless like Shockwaves is a serious film about Nazi zombies and Peter Cushing in the waters of Florida. That's a serious movie. But then Dead Snow, you're putting them in the snow and they're just, what are you doing?
That movie went in one eye and out the other.
The worst argument I've ever presented. But I feel passionately about the difference between those two films.
I don't remember a frame of Dead Snow. I watched the whole thing. Don't remember one frame.
I hated the characters. Hated the characters.
I just remember it was like an Evil Dead 2-ish sort of like horror. I mean, I watched it with a bunch of people and I had fun, but
to compare that to Evil Dead 2.
I meant tone-wise.
Shame on you, sir. Shame.
Do you know what,
though? Did you see
that Evil Dead remake? Yeah. There's that guy, Lou Taylor Pucci, in it. Yeah. You should try to work with him if you have a chance.
Yeah, he was great in that.
I've heard good things.
He had some awesome fucking hair in that movie.
You were great in Resolution.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wait, who are you talking to?
Which one? I thought
Lou Taylor Phillips. Lou Taylor Phillips.
Lou Diamond Phillips. He was great.
Sixth Sign, baby. Sixth Sign. Good film. Anyway, so Fulci zombies. I'm curious. Are you guys into Fulci zombies, or are you because I've met people who really hate the Fulci zombies, and some people are lukewarm. And
I like them in the Beyond, but the thing that I love the Beyond concept because the zombies aren't like zombies dead coming back from the living. They're creatures coming out of hell.
Yeah,
and
I
liked that element, the other dimensional element. What annoyed me about that one is that the characters were so stupid. And it was just like they didn't learn from their mistakes. So like he would shoot one in the kneecap and nothing would happen. And then he'd shoot it in the head and it would fall. So then he'd shoot 3 more in the kneecap and nothing would happen. 1 in the chest and then 1 in the head. It would fall down and then proceed. More in the chest and the kneecaps. Right. And it was just continuous. And it was, get the freaking point, guy. So,
I gotta be honest. Like I've never mentioned, I think maybe Rob's the only person who's ever heard me say this, but I'm not taking anything away from the films, but I've just never connected with Fulci's style stuff. It's just never, I don't know why. I always assumed that it's some sort of cultural thing where just whatever was going on with it tonally, like there are certain filmmakers who I know that are really good filmmakers, but whatever their tone is, whatever their narrative voice is, I have a disconnect. I'm not empathetic towards it at all.
It's not just you. I think that Fulci films kind of across the board are rather inaccessible. There's something there that, you watch what's going on screen.
Right.
He's got these,
He's a set pieces guy too.
I
Like
have the
some
same
parts
problem,
are
but I have the
incredible,
same problem
and
with a
other
lot of
parts drag.
Argento.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. I'm like, when I rewatched Opera, I was like, oh, well, this is really cool. But I haven't gone back.
I feel the same way about just Italian cinema in general.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. There's tons of visual cool stuff in it, but I dare say I don't know if they're good movies.
But the dubbing has a big part of that.
Yeah, the dubbing.
The dubbing is a very
thing
disconnecting thing in any
movie.
movie. I remember seeing Ocean, what's the one where George Perfect Storm, 96% of that was dubbed because they were on a soundstage with water and stuff. And I felt nothing during that film. And I think a lot of it's because you're not getting that in the moment performance.
Yeah.
You're getting a post-dubbed thing. And in Italian, it's even more disconcerting because it's not even
They're all
them.
speaking different
it's a different
languages.
actor playing them.
Yeah.
And but the set pieces in those films are incredible. And the problem with that, if you're noticing a set piece that's incredible, it's because half the other film isn't incredible and it's really badly paced and it's bad performance. But there's moments like, the last 10, 15 minutes and beyond is just like it's kind of orgasmic for just a cinephile, but it doesn't mean I necessarily there's other parts that are just so boring.
See, that's how
and
I felt
torture-y,
about. I rewatched Zombie last night as part of the research, and there are moments of that film that I am like, hell yes, this is brilliant, this is so terrifying, and then other moments where I'm just like, God, just get back to the island and have somebody kill somebody.
City of the Living Dead's the
please.
only one that's genuinely all across the board creepy as fuck, really dark, like dark. It's one of the darkest. I think it is the darkest zombie film ever made. And it really was unsettling.
The priest
it opens with a priest who hangs himself and opens the gates of hell, and you're just like, this is a dark, creepy film, and the tone I think is very consistent for that one. I think it's the only one he made where it's from start to finish. It is what it is.
Do you know what my favorite zombie movie is? The Battery.
I knew that was coming.
That's
blah,
hour
blah. 2.
Blah,
blah, blah.
We don't even touch that.
So
till
why
hour
did
2.
you go 40 plus episodes without touching on zombies? Is it like
don't know,
you were
it's
tired of
weird.
them too? You're like, well, how can we avoid this as long as possible?
I'm the only one here who
Zombies?
even likes The Walking Dead, so
Yeah.
I'm
I
like it
too.
too.
I
like it too.
You like- I just
I
like the
do.
characters.
I mean, I prefer
into
The
it.
Battery, which came out this year.
I like The Walking Dead. I like one episode every 6.
Yeah.
And then I go, God damn it. They always do that one episode where you're like, holy fucking shit, this show is awesome.
Yeah.
And then they spin
And it
their
has the
wheels.
governor in it.
They basically just do like a
Yeah.
Fred Flintstone, like trying to drive his car, like spin their fucking
Yeah.
for like 6 hours, and then they do something else awesome.
I think a lot of that has to, every time they change a showrunner, they set themselves back like 6 episodes. Like the new season, it took 6 episodes for it to get, the first 6 of this latest one were so dull. And then suddenly it was for like 3 episodes. I was like, best TV, the stuff with the governor, I was totally into it.
Really, even that like super cheesy,
which
super
one?
cheesy when he came
The ending?
back, when he's just like in that apartment and it was like super, it was
Yeah, I found it
compelling.
interesting. I
That's the
thought it
problem.
was interesting, yeah.
It's
It was a
really
character
compelling,
thing.
but like the whole time you're going, I love this, and yet I'm like, this is so
Well, yeah.
cheesy.
And that's good,
Carl.
that's-
The problem with that, I'll go get started on that. The problem with that show is they want it to last 27 years.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that show could keep, every episode of that show could be amazing, but they want it to last forever. And so
if
they just keep talking.
If they don't bring up a goal soon, they're going to have trouble. If there's not a goal, hey, we should get to Florida because I heard blah, blah, blah. They haven't had that
That's
yet.
what
And that's a
killed
problem
me.
ultimately. You know?
I stopped a couple seasons ago because I was just like, they're just walking.
Yeah.
They
I
don't
mean,
That's
want
the
to
whole
go.
plot
Yeah.
is
They
walking.
don't want to
No,
go.
because then they get to it and the show ends.
Because
Yeah.
it's gangbuster ratings
Yeah.
and they don't want it to ever end. And so they're never
Which
going
is
to
a
put
problem that we used to have to deal with all of TV, and I wouldn't probably notice it less, but I notice it nonstop now with that show
Right, well,
because
the
we live in
X-Files
this
is the
13
biggest example of
episode
that.
Yeah, you're right.
series now, and
Yeah.
you got like Breaking Bad going 5 seasons, being like, okay, we're out.
Well, that's because Vince Gilligan is. I want to cuddle him.
Yeah.
I just want to
Say that while I'm
down
sitting
and
right
cuddle
And
him.
Mad Men had the same. It was going into that territory where it felt like, wait, there's no end in sight. What happens?
Yeah.
And then they just announced, oh yeah, we're going to wrap it up with one big season and the writer of Chinatown to do it.
Can you imagine
Smart.
if they gave Vince Gilligan $100 million to come in and do 3 more seasons of The Walking Dead and be done with it?
Yeah.
That would be the greatest goddamn 3 seasons of television.
It would be
Jesse would be
huge,
in it
but
for
they'll-
sure.
they'll never do it.
Drive in from the last season. Woo! Oh fuck! He always gets shat on, that guy. But yeah, no, I mean it is interesting, and I think those zombies. I mean, do you think if Darabont had what do you think Darabont would have done if he had kept building that? Where do you think it would have had an end in sight? If that had been Darabont's baby, and if he'd gone to keep with it, would he have?
I don't know, because they did a marathon recently, and I hadn't watched any. I've been watching them just in succession without going back. And last weekend, I happened to catch some of the first season again, and I was like, "Holy shit, this is really wooden, silly stuff."
Yeah, but Darabont's always been wooden and silly.
Right. But I really
still
noticed
great.
it, and then I was like, "Oh, well, what's God?" I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Well, see, a lot of Darabont stuff is wooden and silly, but every season of that show is kind of wooden and silly. Yeah. I mean, I laugh just as much as I'm engaged on that show, but I still watch
like
it.
That Thunderdome moment between Merle and
with the fake arm and the people, kill him. No, but
no spoilers here, guys.
Yeah,
that was like a season ago.
But Darabont he's got gumption and balls, and he would have said, "This is what I want to do with the show," and he would have taken it a Darabonty way.
Yeah.
And now we've just got this kind of weird like committee thing that keeps happening.
Yeah, they need to really stick with somebody, otherwise.
Well, did you hear his idea for what the first episode of season 2 was supposed to be?
No.
Really briefly, it was just I forget the name of the actor. I think it's Sam Whittier. He's in The Mist. He's done a bunch of stuff with
Sam Whitmer.
Yeah, Sam Whitmer. There's I think it's in the second episode of the entire series where Rick hides out in the tank or whatever, and there's the body of a dead soldier in there. You don't even really notice it because it's just kind of in the background, but he hired that actor to play the dead soldier. And the reason being is because he wanted to kick off the second season as this whole thing that like took place almost 6 months earlier, where you follow this soldier as the whole thing outbreaks, and that episode would have ended with it, and it was going to be Sam, like he was going to be the lead of episode 1.
Sounds more like World War Z
with him
the original
in
idea.
in the tank or whatever. But and I thought like, oh, that's kind of neat.
This sounds fucked up, but that's kind of what they've been doing successfully with the video game, with the Telltale Walking Dead, like doing the video game. And I'm not even a video game guy, but the video game for Walking Dead is phenomenal.
Really?
And they did sort of like when you were talking about like Marked Ones, the Paranormal Activity thing, they did an aside sort of like a sequel getting ready for the second Walking Dead. They do an entire season, and you just follow a couple of characters and they sort of move in and out. And that seems to me like would have been the interesting way to have been able to continue the show on. But now all we do is wait for, okay, well, which of our beloved characters are going to die?
Yeah.
That's all
and
the
then
show
we'll
is
fold
now.
somebody new in.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That's the problem with the expanse of the zombie world is that, and it's just going to get worse with The Walking Dead because they've already announced a side series.
Side show.
There's a side series. We're going to follow a whole new group of
Real
people
Housewives of
in the same
Connecticut zombies.
They're going to do the same shit. They're like, how much money can we bilk out of this fucking phenomenon? Instead of having any, I mean,
I'm going to put money on it that you get pegged to make one and you change your tune like a motherfucker. You're like, now
that's because I work in a fucking bar. And if someone wants me to make The Walking Dead and they're
Dear
like,
AMC.
nothing can happen for 6 weeks. And I'm like, fine, that's fine. They'll just talk.
I will do it.
They will talk forever. I don't
funny.
care.
Wow. Well, you know what? I wanted to tie it just briefly. What?
You wanted to talk about Dead Heat
of course, obviously.
Okay.
You read my mind.
Are we talking about our obscure ones?
That movie's not as good as y'all remember.
But
Really?
I just wanted to briefly, because the thing I read, I did research and I read some of Jeremy's previous interviews and stuff. And I kind of agree with this, but there's a lot of zombie movies, but there's not a lot of great zombie movies. Like I think my list is pretty small, and I think part of the reason is because it's the easiest movie for an indie filmmaker to make. So every year we're bombarded by 24 DVDs of like the lowest budget backyard zombie
not to
movies.
sidebar you and not to disagree with you, but I mean yes and no. Because having made movies on a shoestring budget, you think, okay, zombie movies, they're easy. You just slap some Ben Nye on somebody and have them walk. But you can't pull a single wide shot off on that unless you've got the money to get like 300 extras. You got to have none of them looking at the camera. You got to have them all in wardrobes. So to actually do it is not cheap.
But you only turn the headlights of the car on for a few seconds.
Yeah, but still, you've got to...
but we cut a lot of shots out of that because that horde was
this perspective is not going to work.
But smart. It was smart. Yeah, no, you're
it's hard
right.
to deal with spaces.
Was it you that was making the argument that the problem with, and this ties into the batteries, the problem with a lot of, especially zombie movies that are on a low budget is people try to make their movie seem way bigger when they don't have the money to make it look bigger. Whereas your film kind of catered to the budget, which is like, well, hey, we have this much, so this is what we're showing, which only made the story stronger.
Sure,
you know what I mean?
The script was written with the budget in mind. I said, I think I can get this much. Now, what is a logical story that can take place in the constraints of what I can get for that?
And that is what fucking everybody should be doing.
Yes.
Like young filmmakers that are trying to figure out how to make a movie. Don't try to make your Nightmare on Elm Street junior high script into a reality and changing some characters. Like really, you can't, like we were talking about this before. I know El Mariachi's awesome. to some people. For me, I'm like, it's a $7,000 movie and that's all that it is. Because I'm like, cool, he should have gotten some more money to really made the movie that he wanted to make. And what I said about The Battery, and we talked about, is that if you had given it more money, they'd have just eaten better, because the story was fully realized to me in that. So you've got to come at it, young filmmakers, you got to come at it from a place of, what are my exploitable elements? What are my resources? Mm-hmm. And let that craft everything else after it, because otherwise you're just not going to pull it off.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I'm not a fucking trailblazer. I dropped out of high school, and yet I don't understand why that doesn't immediately become apparent to people. It's like if someone told me no one's ever going to give you money to make another movie, I could make 20 more movies the rest of my life, and if you told me I had $1,000 in a week, I would sit there and go, what is the most compelling and interesting story that I can write around $1,000 in a house? Right. And other people just want to be big. They want to be more than they are. And I don't understand that, because, a story. What's that? Was The Last Man on Earth sat alone in a house. There was a knock at the door. The shortest horror story of all time. Like that's it. That's all you need to compel somebody. You have to just decide what your constraints are and work within those constraints. And you can tell a compelling story. We could make a horror movie that takes place in this fucking room. It's called Pontypool.
Yeah, it's really good. I like that.
But I think one of the problems is people are always so concept driven, not character driven. So if concept's always part of it. Your film has still a high concept in the sense of Zombie. But if it's about the characters first and foremost within that, that's so much easier to approach and to really write something interesting and compelling. But most horror films, if somebody tells you their idea, they always start with the idea. They start with the concept. They don't start with, hey, these characters who do this and this. They just start with, zombies on a plane, and it's already hollow.
There's this sort of level of narcissism, because they're not really interested in telling you a story. Mm-hmm. They're interested in showing you that they've seen movies that you've seen, or that they're clever, or give them money so they can really tell a story. Right. That's so condescending to whatever it is they're trying to show you at the time. I don't want to ever hear a filmmaker apologize. I don't want to hear them talk about, well, if I could have gotten this, we could have made you something good. Right. So, support indie horror. No, I just want to support a good movie. I don't care what the budget is.
Yeah, totally.
It's funny how it's kind of as you progress through the process of making movies, how it kind of turns against you, because now I've got people a little bit of heat on The Battery, and they're like, great, want to read the new script? Can you give us treatment? What's it like? And I'm like, well, I don't really know how to boil down a very character-driven. It's a character-driven genre movie, and so
because you didn't tell people about The Battery, you showed them The Battery.
Yes, I said, here, look at this. And then if someone said, pitch The Battery, I would be like, oh, it's two guys. They walk around. Right. It's fucking great. You're gonna love it. They walk,
but they played baseball together back in the day.
Oh yeah, baseball. Baseball, the most boring sport to everybody. And then two guys walking, and then there's a lot of static shots, and nothing much happens. It's gonna be fucking great. I promise.
And there's a long take.
I'm gonna spit in my mouth.
No, but I think that's important. Like, that's the difference. You can burst on a scene, but when you have to pitch ideas, you have to sell people without showing them.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's a different art form.
And when it's somebody else's money, that's when you are having to put things in, and you're given like $100,000 and told to set it in a circus on the moon and things like that. That's when it always gets dicey.
And then somebody wrote that idea.
Extra fun
circus on the moon.
Like zombies.
And the extra fun thing that we get to deal with is after you get to make a movie, which is a supreme privilege, and a few people like it, you make another one, and then suddenly it goes straight up cannibal zone. Well, fuck the movie. They don't know what they're doing. Also, that first movie sucked too. So it's this weird.
What did you get the most shit in your career? What film have you gotten the most negative shit about? Like, and not even because it's a bad movie, but just any negative shit, or people who attack stupid things about the movie. Like, do you even pay attention to that stuff? Or
anybody that says they don't is a fucking liar.
Yeah, I'm fairly sure.
It's easy. Like, a lot of people make fun of Creepshow 3, and I laugh about it because it's not a good movie. But also, the other thing that I tell my friends is that I'm not embarrassed of it, because I had lived in LA for 4 months. I came out here with $200 and a fucking busted Saturn, and I was shooting a movie at Universal Studios 4 months after I got here. And so that was an amazing experience to get to actually say, I'm not a liar, I'm doing something. I can't, and it also taught me that I can't, as an actor, control the quality of the content of the big picture of it. Right. You just try to do my part. Like right now, Your Next is on VOD and it's coming out, and there's so many people that go out of their way. Jeremy and I were talking about this earlier. There are so many people that go out of their way to contact me on Twitter or wherever and go, hey, you fucking fat idiot. You suck. You're awful. Your acting sucks. The only character that was like, I saw somebody comment about how awful Barbara was. And I'm like, yeah, you're mine, man. Yeah. And there's a lot of people that feel that it's their privilege to shit on stuff. So it's all really arbitrary because best case scenario, half the people that see your movie like it. Best case.
And I'm wondering if it's also probably sometimes the best thing you do that also gets the most shit.
Yeah.
As well as the best
Like,
press,
I know which ones I think are the best movies that I've been in, and I'm just waiting for everybody to shit on Sacrament. I'm fine with it.
Yeah. But just for the record, nobody should. Everybody loves me and loves my movie.
Just wait. Just wait.
But yeah, the broader it goes, the more, and the internet kind of just feels. I'm just curious.
I also think that you'll betray them. They have a sense of entitlement, like some of my indie friends shit all over me when I decided to be in Hatchet 2, and then some of the fans of Hatchet 2 shit all over me when I decided to make A Horrible Way to Die, or when they find out, what I'm really into is atmospheric horror. My favorite horror film is Black Christmas. And then they're like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Or they get pissed if you don't go to conventions. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not trying to sell a personality. I just want to tell stories.
And they shit on you when you shave.
Oh yeah, that was a big one.
What the fuck?
Someone told me, don't lose it, man, because some asshole went on Twitter and was like, bad career move, bro.
Yeah, I remember that. That's why I was saying it. I remember that. But that is interesting. I think I saw Creepshow. Would this make sense in Spanish? First time on TV?
I mean, it would.
I feel like I saw that in Spanish.
It certainly wouldn't have convoluted.
Spanish version.
It was good.
Too?
In Spanish, I liked it. That was solid. But no, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think that you're putting yourself out there. Anyone who's making any film, it's a risky thing. And the movies we love, somebody fucking hates. And that's, who cares? As long as you're okay with it.
I got into a big conversation about how much I love Tin Cup the other day, and everyone was laughing at me.
That movie's awesome.
Yeah,
how cool is it that Kevin Costner is becoming like the big guy again?
Becoming?
Well, he's coming. He's on a huge.
I'm going to hold myself up. I said I'm going to hold myself up. I'm going to write the greatest role that's ever been written for any human being ever, and I'm only going to offer it to Kevin Costner. And if he doesn't take it, forget it.
You already did it. You already did Bull Durham.
Okay, so I have an interesting question about zombies. This is an interesting topic. And this plagued me a little bit during the battery. What do you think about people acknowledging the existence of zombies in zombie movies?
I like it when they don't. And if I look over like my list of favorites here, the ones that I wrote down, like I Sell the Dead was one of my favorite movies because they come at it with kind of virgin eyes where they're like, what the hell is that? We have never seen a thing like that before. How do we kill it? We have no clue. And I think that is needed to kind of up the ante. If the dead start walking and everybody's like, oh my gosh, zombies are real. They came back to life.
That's time period I Saw the Dead, though. That works for that.
It does. I don't know if that same kind of virgin attitude towards it would work in present day, because everybody's going to be like,
do you feel
never
like,
heard of a zombie
Yeah,
before?
that's the problem. That because the genre is so oversaturated now, that you get these people who go, it's a fucking zombie, shoot it in the head.
Because it's immediately postmodern at that point.
Yeah, exactly. You feel like the audience already knows what it is, so the characters should know.
It's the same thing with vampire movies, and it's really hard to pull off, but the only one that I can think of that was a self-aware one that kind of worked for me at all was From Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and he's like,
I love that.
Crazy people who do not catch fire when explosives.
I don't give a fuck how crazy they are.
Yeah. I believe in my own two eyes, and I see.
You're right. I think it speaks to what she was saying about shooting them in the head. In Zombie,
that's the thing. If I watch a modern movie,
we're too far ahead of it.
As an audience, if you guys open the movie with you shooting at a zombie's legs, I would have been like, "Oh, come on, man, really?"
Right. I think we're too far along.
We're at the point where we've all seen it, or at least it's part of. It's folklore, like the whole zombie legend. It's like part of a campfire story or just whatever. Like, we know it.
And even the Walking Dead thing where they're not going to acknowledge, even after a while, you're like, you just want one of the kids to go, have you ever seen a Romero film? You just want one of them to say it.
That's
like,
what
come on.
Is you have to imagine a world in which these pieces
where pop culture doesn't exist. Doesn't exist. That world's bullshit.
And it was touch and go whether we would acknowledge it at all. And we have that one scene, which it could have been in the movie or not. We could have cut it at any time, where he's just like, just say it, say the Z word.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite bits of the whole movie.
You say, say you're burning up in the sun and you can't fucking eat garlic and you got a crucifix, and he's like, what is it? He's like, say what the thing is.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to do it necessarily, and I even forgot after we shot that scene that they had done something very similar in Shaun of the Dead. I didn't even realize that. He just says, don't say the Z word, just very quickly. Yeah. I was like, fuck.
It reaches a point where I sort of like when we were talking about Walking Dead, where we start waiting for characters that we like to die. Similarly, it feels like all I'm doing now is listening to people not say that word.
You want them
walkers?
To
they all come up with any word they can. That's like
it's not
anything but like
but
some
zombies.
like Carl's at a zombie. Just say it one time. It doesn't matter.
So when you were writing the battery and putting it together, like you never thought of the idea like, all right, I have to have a scene where I explain what happened and why they're walking it. Because I like that it starts where it's in the middle of it and you just assume, all right, they're trying to survive.
Well, no, I mean, that doesn't interest me. That's completely inconsequential to the story that was being told. I mean, because who cares? Like, I've never seen a zombie movie where they were like, oh, a fucking meteor hit and then a ooze fell into a lake and then someone drank the water. That part of the story, I don't give a shit about that. It's just how it affects the people involved in the situation. And so there was no way I was going to come up with a new cool way that people started returning from the dead. It's just about how the living people.
But you did have to
it.
decide what kind of zombie you were going to present, which is always a decision. Is it a slow moving? Is it yours felt more in the Romero world or something like that? Kind of a classic.
Kind of
well, see, Romero set up the rules and he didn't even know he was setting up the rules.
He didn't even call it zombie, right?
And he nailed the fucking rules. Yeah. And actually, Max Brooks. I mean, I read World War Z and I read parts of the zombie survival guide, and he without like. I read that and I go, yep. That's what I always thought. Yep, of course. Yep, that makes sense. Yep, they can't climb over a wall, but if there's enough of them, they will pile up on each other until they ultimately get up over the top of it. I mean, there were moments there was a lot of things when they were trapped in the car. There was like, I had a whole sequence where they're like, we're going to kill every one of these fucking zombies that are on the car. So they roll the window. Originally there was chicken wire over the windows that Ben puts up when they're at his Mickey's ex-girlfriend's house. He puts like chicken wire so they have a cage and they can shove like arrows through there and stab them. So at the end, when they're stuck there, they start stabbing all the zombies in the eyes. But then I was like, wait, they'll start piling up. So then I was like, they'll start piling up in front of the doors and then they get under the car. And then they have the idea that they'll put it in neutral. And maybe the zombie, if they go to the back of the car, the zombies will start pushing the car and it maybe will roll. But then because they'd done the arrow thing, the zombies were all piled up around the tire so the car wouldn't move. There's just all these little rules that like you go, okay, the rules are already established. Now, how do I play with them? But
that's fun. What's have you seen any zombie films that just like surprise, battery surprises, but not because of the zombies, but because of the characters and they feel original and fresh? And but have you ever seen a zombie film? The one that comes to mind, it's not a great film, but it was really different. Was the French film They Came Back? And it's just literally like I remember somebody recommending, and I checked it out. I was like, the zombies come back, but it creates a problem because they're normal. They come back and they want their old jobs and their girlfriends and their wives back, but it creates a real social issue because what do we do with these people? It's kind of I feel like zombies are like with toilets. Like if you ever hear have you ever seen Zizek, that philosopher? He does that. He talks about there's a toilet scene in the Conversation where he flushes a toilet and it's the evidence of the crime and it comes up with blood. It's like toilet is our way of just getting rid of the shit we don't want to see anymore. We don't want to see it. That is the worst thing that can happen to a human is seeing their own shit come back. That's what zombies are. It's our shit that we've buried and forgotten coming back to fuck with us. It's like that's the nightmare side of the zombie. And
isn't there a big a pretty fairly popular foreign show right now like The Returned? Isn't that?
I think that's a play on this. I think it's a remake of this.
They just come back and they're just like.
I think it's literally a remake of that movie. But if you haven't seen it, watch it because it's totally different and it might not be your bag. It's not gory at all, but it does create this weird idea that you've moved on from someone. Like even if it was a child, as dark as that is, even if it's that, if it came back, what was that film? Wakewood. Did you ever see that Irish?
Yes,
that was a scary film. That was a weird film, but it had a really dark idea because it's not your kid anymore. I'm sorry, it came back.
Yeah,
it's not.
You've lived
it's
for
something
a year
else now.
without the kid.
Yeah,
and they've experienced death, so they come back completely different.
Yeah, that was an interesting film.
Yeah,
it wasn't a great film, but it was an interesting one.
I was about to say Pet Sematary.
Yeah, it's very much
it's a little bit more twisted than Pet Sematary, but it's the same general concept of it. So.
But it is fun when somebody does something like that, where it's maybe just something you haven't thought of. It doesn't need to be reinventing the wheel, like you say, but just they're going, hey, but what if it did this?
Right. Well, it's like I didn't think Colin was a great movie.
Right.
Had a lot of hype for being super low budget, and I was like, 70 70 pounds. I can make one for 6,000. But the concept of like the movie starts, guy comes in, he's bit, he sits there, he dies, he wakes up, and he stands and stumbles out of the house, and then just follows this new zombie throughout this world. That was very clever, and I hadn't seen that before. I don't know if it might have been done before, but it seemed novel to me, and it was interesting.
The problem that I run into is that it's really easy. It ends up becoming again more about, so often in the low budge world, becomes more about them showing you that they're subverting expectations or the paradigm, so that I don't care about if it's, completely straightforward. I don't need to see them, like we were talking about, I don't need to see them reinvent the wheel, but I want a compelling story with characters that I'm invested in, that I'm interested in, and then do whatever you want. Yeah. But there can come a point when you spend so much time showing me that you're doing a twist or a play on convention.
I totally agree.
I had this last night. I watched a screener for the new Hobbit film, Smaug, which was better than the last one. But you know what? There's so many characters in that movie that all I kept thinking is, man, when I saw her on Brain Dead, Tim Baum's character, I really, really gave a shit about him.
Oh, yeah.
I liked him. There's all this carnage going on. Man, whatever you call it in this country. Fucking heathens. Kiwi. Back when I lived in the city where that was filmed, so we go with Brain Dead. But, you really cared about him, and it was a really focused story. And he's just lost that ability. There are so many storylines and characters that I don't care if you show me the best thing ever, and the dragon was pretty impressive on a visual level. I still don't care. Not saying I don't care. I'm watching it going, hey, this is well made. But I've not one iota emotionally engaged in what you're showing me. And I don't care if that happens to that person, because there's just too many characters, too much stuff happening.
Beyond genre, I have that's across the board cinematically for me. Yeah. I don't give a shit about what happens in American Hustle because I don't give a fuck about the characters.
You don't care about any of those characters.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, it was a very shallow film, even though it had a lot of, it looked good and it's a cool time period. But
don't make me sad. I was excited to watch
I know.
that.
I really wanted to see that one,
Some people like it, but it goes a long way to make us really care. And I do think that The Walking Dead has succeeded on that with, I think, Andrew Lincoln. If Andrew Lincoln's character died tomorrow, even if some people find him annoying, he's a really good actor and he's created a character. If something happened, I think that show would be hard to watch, If
anything ever happens to Norman Reedus, the show's over.
Well, yeah, Norman's the fan favorite.
That's what they've built it up that way, where he's been through too much. And
to me, that show is the hero's journey, and the hero is Carl.
Clearly.
With this giant hat. No, I think I thought for a while that Andrew Lincoln was struggling with that character, and then he really put some really kind of gut wrenching shit when Laurie died.
Yeah, and also it's just it's not an enviable slot as a performer.
No, it's tough.
Carry this show where you're the least interesting person, and you have to always say the stoic, boring shit.
Yeah.
But it's true. But we do identify, and I would be fascinated. I remember saying after the last season that if he had died and the governor had become the lead character, because in that world, that could have happened. And he could have taken all these people and said, hey, if you want to survive, come with me, even though I just killed your leader.
Nobody has the balls to do that. But that's brilliant.
But that would be interesting, right?
Again, you're talking about pre-existing content. So it's like, do you piss off the audience by... Because I heard that Darabont was talking about flipping it and having Shane become the lead in season 2. Yeah. Like having the Shane character take over for Rick. And
that's interesting.
As a conversation, I don't know how true that is, but... you're instantly isolating a core demographic. It's the same
because
reason
it's emotional. We have an attachment to someone.
The Marvel kids love the Avengers, and they're the same people that tell me how terrible Chris Nolan's Batman movies are. Because they're like, and they don't give a fuck about the character, but they just get this sense of propriety about it, where they're like, I'm entitled to have my vision seen. So again, are you just going to circumvent? Like, which way is the story driving? I can't imagine how you would even begin to go about dealing with, okay, well, we've got this thing that's existed for years. How are we going to fuck with it? Because that's what they're looking at.
Yeah. I want to jump on one thing about both of you because you're here. The idea of a cult film is something, Becca and me, I love cult films even more than the horror film. Like the idea of a cult film, when I look back at cinema, are usually some of my favorite films. And you can't make a cult. But there haven't been many in the last 20 years that I say are natural cult films. But it remains to be seen whether The Battery is a cult film. But for us, it certainly makes sense because we're talking about saying if it isn't marketed, telling the audience that this is a cult film or you must see this film. You've had zero marketing, and yet everyone all these top 10 lists has either seen at a festival or been told by someone to go see a movie. That's a fucking powerful the power of somebody reminding you, hey, no, trust me, man, this movie is not what you think it's going to be with the zombies. Like, AJ might have told me twice, you tweeted, that's a powerful thing. And then we get on here and we start talking about it, and whoever's listening, they finally watch it and they tweet saying, oh my God, that was the best film. Dick, who's sitting in the room, came to our screening at Jump Cut, and he literally, I remember he came up to me afterwards and goes, yeah, I want to do this. This is what like how you felt about the person who influenced you. And I think that's a genuinely powerful word of mouth cult, which I can't remember the last time I think there was a genuine, I mean, things like, Repo will obviously have that kind of thing too, because the marketing sure didn't make Repo, right? People's love made something like that. But how aware of it were you? At what point did you first start getting that this is like people are talking and sharing this movie rather than something that you had to do all the work to get the word out?
Just now, Elric.
Oh, cool. That's good. That's good. Thanks for joining us.
No, it's it does not get old, and and I still don't believe it really. Yeah. I was talking to Justin Benson the other day, and I said, we got into the Telluride Horror Show was our premiere festival, and we got a letter, which you don't get, because we gotten rejected from a lot of festivals before that, and some of them we didn't even get rejections from. We just never heard back.
Yeah.
And I get this letter from the festival director, and it's like, look, my lineup was set. I was done. I had 3 more DVDs that came in the mail that day. I was ready to announce. I sat down and I said, I'm obligated. I should give these things a chance. I popped the movie in, and I sat there transfixed. And about 5 minutes in, my wife put her cell phone down, and she sat there transfixed, and we watched her movie, and we absolutely adored it, and we would be honored if it would fucking play
that's
at our
very
festival.
meaningful. That's very meaningful.
And that was amazing. That was such an amazing experience. And the fact that he reached out and said, like, I really, really loved the film. And then it was like 4 months went by, and nothing. No other festival, nothing. And we were like, well, that was it. Yeah. We had our moment. That was our moment. And then out of the blue, Imagine in Amsterdam came through and said, hey, we'd like to have you in the movie. And then because of Imagine sharing their screeners with Dead by Dawn in Scotland, they were like, hey, we got you from Imagine. And then suddenly it started picking up. And then a woman named Anik Menard, who's been brilliant. She works with Raven Banner and Screen Division. She was randomly at a film festival in Tours, France, a mauvais genre. And she was like, I just wandered into this movie. And because she saw that, she found out we were going to be in Germany for a week. She flew from Paris to Germany just to have breakfast with us. Wow. She was just like, I love the movie so much. She ended up getting it into like 30 more festivals herself, just pushing the movie into all these festivals. And then it starts to like, you go to them. And that's the thing about festivals too, is you wonder, how much am I influencing this audience by being here and doing my song and dance and doing my Q&A and having a beer with everybody and staying for 5 days when other guests come for like an hour and a half and they leave, and just really trying to invest in the process and build that audience. Because I've said it before, like, as much as like, I don't love Kevin Smith's films that much. I love Kevin Smith. He lets you into the process. He says, I am available. I am here. Here's how I did these things. Talk to me. And he was one of the people I said, I try to make the people who might like this movie care about the next one, even if it's not a sequel to The Battery.
Right.
I have to invest them in me as a storyteller. And so that's been a part of the whole song and dance at the Q&As and really trying to be available. And it's only now dawning on me that people really, really genuinely love the movie, and like sitting in this fucking studio right now.
Well, I mean, like insane. For instance, like when AJ, like I think people listen to this and just take for granted that you guys are old friends, and they're like, oh, AJ's pushing his friend's movie. And we're talking about somebody who has, already made a lot of really great films and is a really good actor, who's just decided to help promote your film, going to
but they didn't
screening. That's what I'm getting to. This is what I'm saying. This is what's remarkable about it. No, it's just somebody who liked your work. That's pretty remarkable too. That's like the Telluride letter to me. It's somebody who's going out of their way to beat the drum because it's special.
It's a beautiful, selfless, amazing thing, and like, I love him for doing that.
Rob and
I met him 3 hours ago, by the way.
Yeah, so people don't realize that we've talked about The Battery and these two connected in a way, but they just met.
Well, yeah, but we also talk regularly.
Yeah.
It was
AJ, do you know for real, I checked myself out in the reflection of a store window before I walked into Jump Cut Cafe. I'm like, I like, it's been built up so much that I have never met AJ Bowen, and it feels like we've met, that I'm like, do I look like a fucking person right now? Right. Like, am I ready to meet this fucking person?
But the point is, he wouldn't have done it if he didn't, and same with us, we see so many films. I'm not gonna just jump on Rob's band or AJ's bandwagon because they told me a movie's good. I'm gonna go.
Do you know how many films?
Yeah, we
tries to
disagree
get
on.
me to watch. I never watch any of them.
Right, and we fight or whatever. But it's like this: if somebody's gonna go out and do that, it means it touched something with them too. No. You know, it's
this is basic. This all has got to be for something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's my life's endeavor. There have been a ton of sacrifices. And we've watched people for years, they'll do something, and then I watch them sort of divorce themselves from the concept of storytelling or of film in general, and I watch them begin to sell a product, the product being an image of themselves, you know, and no judgment, everybody's on their own trip. But the reason that I was compelled to throw my life away into this endeavor where there's no money and there's a lot of work and you're asking everybody you care about to make a sacrifice. Rob and I have been talking about this for like 7 years because I'm chasing that feeling of finding a movie on VHS in my buddy's basement in 6th grade, and we learn about cinema that way. We watch the movie, we get done with it, we pop it in the rewinder, we rewind it and we watch it again. We become obsessed with films. And in those moments, those movies, sharing those experiences with people, they'll make you feel like less of a freak, right? They'll make you feel sort of like you have a place. I grew up in the South and I'm a honky, but I am not like the people that I grew up around. So I would be a freak in my friends' basements. We would watch all these weird movies. I start trying to make movies. I get really lucky and I win the lottery. Literally, we got Signal into Sundance without knowing anybody for 50 grand and it sold and getting to have that movie and then traveling with it like Jeremy's talking about, and you go to these festivals. For us, I'd never done that before. So my first film festival was Sundance. And I hated the actual festival. It was like there were so many photographers just trying to take pictures of famous people who didn't even have movies there. Nobody was watching movies. But you start traveling to these festivals and you meet a person that didn't grow up where you grew up, that grew up halfway around the world. And you find out they're a freak too, and they were watching the same movies in the basement, and you already speak the same language. It's the same movies, you know? When Rob and I met, we met in New York when I was promoting The Signal. And we immediately knew that it's different than meeting somebody and becoming friends with them. You're like, oh yeah, it's a fellow freak. We just haven't seen each other in person yet. Right. So we were immediately friends. And we share those moments together. So I've been lucky in the big picture sense of the word. Nobody knows who the fuck I am or what I do. My movies don't make any money, but there are a few thousand people who will read my bullshit on Twitter. And so looking up and you see somebody put a movie out and you find out the story about it. I mean, I liked The Battery so much. I watched on the 4th of July. I drove up to go to a wedding. I rented it on my iPad up there for the one night I was there. I drove back home and I rented it again on my TV to watch it. And I was like, the first person I contacted was Rob. And I was like, you've got to see this fucking movie. It's going to blow your mind. And I started trying to stalk Jeremy because I was like, it's not a gimmick. The gimmick is that there's a story, an intimate story. There was care taken to it. So I wanted to know about this guy. And then when Jeremy and I started talking to each other, we started finding things out. And it's like, wow, I'm 36 and I didn't know that Jeremy was alive, but we had the exact same experience growing up. We're both Braves fans. We're into the same shit.
You know? Slide, baby.
Yeah. So we started finding out that we're into the same stuff. And he lives in Connecticut and I live in Los Angeles. But you know, when we finally made a joke about it on his birthday, it was like, I feel like we have like an Al Powell, John McClane relationship where we had this walkie-talkie internet friendship that lasted like 6 months. So yeah,
I want to ask who's who on that one.
I already said I'm older, so I've got to be Al Powell. I'm on the desk job. He's the new blood.
Can't we just both be Al Powell?
Yeah, that's fine.
I think you are.
But that's the whole. I think that's the whole purpose. You know, like going to these movies, going to revival theaters, and getting to have that conversation afterwards and just discuss what you're into. It makes people feel a little bit less alone. Maybe it makes them feel interested in making a movie, you know?
Yeah.
You know how many young filmmakers think they can't make one? And it's not like The Battery's easy. That shit is hard to pull off. What he and Christian did is fucking nuts. But it will spark someone's interest enough to go, $6,000? Okay, well, maybe I should watch some movies. And why don't we make one? If 100 people do that and 99 of them are bullshit and we get one more person that made a movie like The Battery, then that was worth it, right?
Yeah.
That's what I always say is I'm not a fucking genius. And it's like, and if you sit here and quizzed me If you all picked 20 movies right now and asked me if I'd seen, I might have seen one. And that's why it's like oh shit, we're doing zombies on Killer POV. Right. It's like we might as well be doing romantic comedies or golf movies or whatever, because it's not that I picked zombie movies because I'm an expert on zombie movies, I'm going to do it. It's because here's a subgenre that I have found that I really, really like when it's done well, and I feel like I can tell a compelling story in it. I always want to work in the genre. Like I'm making a monster movie right now, but it's not a monster movie. Mm-hmm. It's about a marriage. And it just happens to have a fucking creature in it. Mm-hmm. And that's going to be hard to sell too. But coming up and watching...
Wait, hold on, everyone. What? Sounds like my favorite movie, Possession.
Hell!
We hadn't had one this episode. So
yes,
there you go. They pulled it off. Marriage, monster, boom.
Oh, fuck, now I want to see it even more.
Yeah, there you go.
But no, it's like I said, I came up from Florida to Connecticut, and I was going to be close to the city, and I was like, I'm going to try to be an actor, and it's a miserable experience. Yes. You know, it's a miserable experience. But why did
you go to Connecticut to act? Yeah. I'm curious.
So Christian, my DP, his family lost about 750 pounds on the Atkins diet because his father was actually a really well-trained chef. They were just super obese, and he finally decided, I'm going to try to do the Atkins diet, but I'm going to cook healthy, low-carb food. And they dropped weight crazy, and he physically forced himself past security at the Food Network and dropped his demo tape in their hands, and they gave him a show on the Food Network. So he moved to Connecticut to shoot it. He knew I wanted to be an actor. He said, hey, come up and live with us. You'll be close to the city. So I did. And I tried very, very quickly and for a very short period of time to do the pounding of the pavement acting thing. Mm-hmm. And then I said, I can't do this. I can't be the guy who goes in and doesn't know if they didn't call me back because I'm a terrible actor or because I was too tall for the actress they already cast. I said, I just want to make movies with my friends again. And that's what we had done when we were 18 years old. We got into the Sarasota Film Festival, made a feature for $2,000. And we were with Sean Penn's The Pledge was playing before Night Falls was playing. And our $2,000 movie about a guy who bakes his friend's ashes into a cake and eats it was there too. And I was like, I want to do that again. Let's get the band back together. I know we can do this. So I just listened to podcasts. That's where I heard about The Signal. I listened to every DVD commentary I could find for 10 years. And I just decided I can do this. And now, even if I never make another movie again, which I fucking will, if one person is inspired and says, look what they did. Like they crafted a story around something, around their resources, and they make something great, then that's great. I just want to be available to that. And meeting these people at these festivals and these kids, I'm doing this. That has been one of the most rewarding experiences.
Yeah, I think, and that goes through anything you do in life, like including podcasts or anything. If you are speaking as a genuine fans, like we try not to be like haters on this show because none of us are generally. Yeah. Like we all love cinema, so we talk about it. If people like the show, I think that's the reason. Because there's a lot of shit out there where people are just sarcastic. They want to talk on a show or make a movie that's about taking someone down, like the internet. And I feel like that's just such a hollow place to be. Yeah. Like, what are you building?
I mean, I have a list next to my computer of all the fucking movies you guys have mentioned that I haven't seen yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I do. Possession's at the top.
3 of them are good.
I've had a lot of people email me and say the exact same thing. That's the one thing that they take from the show is they ask for lists. So we do have to do our obscure zombies before the end of the day.
Our deep cuts.
Yeah, our deep cut zombie films, just so that we can make sure that we add to people's lists.
Well, I want to figure out a couple quick battery before we get to it. I want to know what was the hook for you, like before writing it, besides the budget? Was it like, I want to do the two friends who were baseball fans? Like, what was that one thing? Or did you have one particular scene that then sparked kind of like the framework of where you were going to take it? But
well, no, it was, you did your research, yes, Rob, so you probably know this answer.
Sorry, let me direct this question. So, Rob, what was his first influence?
He made an audition tape for the movie Perkins 14.
You're right.
I read this same piece because I'm a fucking stalker.
Yeah, the After Dark one.
Oh, weird.
He did an audition tape for that.
So there was a website called Massify.com, and they were going to like cull everything for one of those After Dark movies. They're going to get the script, they were going to get the director, they're going to get the actors, and they're like, make an audition tape. So I made one. I was like, I think I can make one that's not so much an audition tape, but it's kind of like a short film. So I had like my upstairs neighbor who had a camera. We went out and we like shot the short, and it was going to be like a diary, like two buddies documenting their time in the post-zombie world. And I thought it was really clever because he's just like to camera. I'm like talking about how it's this day, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And we're out here. Oh, here comes a zombie now. And then like I open the car door and I get out and I smash his head with like a little hammer, but you can't see it because the door is in front of it. And then it cuts and it cuts back and I'm crying because my buddy went to take a shit and he got eaten. And you can hear this pounding on the wall on the car. And I allude to the fact that that's my friend pounding on the car. And then I say, I'm going to go take care of him now, but don't worry, I won't record it. And I turn the camera off. And I'm going to call my buddy. And I was like, that was cool, man. And then I got to like number 19. You had to get to like number 10 to get like an audition in LA or something. But I couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake the idea. So I started developing it slowly. And what's funny is there is a full 99-page screenplay out there with Ben, Mickey, and Duncan. It was 3 people. There's a full draft, and I had written my upstairs neighbor into the full feature. And then he comes to me one night after we were at the bar, and he goes, Jeremy, I don't want you to be mad at me, but I just don't think I can do it. I'm not an actor, and I'm really scared I'm going to mess it up. I just don't think I can do it. And then I have this notepad in my house still. I have the note that says, the cut Duncan option. And I broke down all the beats in which I would have to cut him out. And then of course, like the battery is 2 people. And of course, like it was necessary for that to happen.
Yeah.
And it really shaped the film. I mean, they meet him halfway through. He's been living on like the canned like olives in a bar, in the basement of a bar. And then he has a video camera. And so it was going to be half like narrative and half his camera. And then it was just like, it's amazing. Like, if I had made the movie when I wanted to, it would have been a pile of shit because it took so long to get the money and get everybody organized. The story found itself.
That's interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you haven't seen this film. Larry Fessenden does one of the voices.
Yeah.
So that's obviously you didn't tell me the story how you actually got him to do the voice. Was that
just constant aggressive pursuing?
Larry is the reason that Jeremy and I know each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I saw the battery and I was like, oh, well, Larry worked on it, so I'll check it out. And that's what ultimately made me watch it, because Larry's like a brother to me. Yeah. Like I love Larry. And I think he's one of the great patron saints of our little niche in the world of cinema. And right after I saw it, the first thing I did was I emailed Larry. And I was like, or I texted Larry, and I was like, Larry, saw that you worked on this movie, The Battery. Do you have the phone number of the writer, director, editor, crafty? He did every single job in the movie. I want that guy's information. And he said, I don't have it. I don't have a cell number. And then I got an email the same day that was like, hey, Jeremy, meet AJ. AJ wants to suck your dick about how much he loves The Battery. Here's his email address.
That's funny.
Yeah, let's call him out right now. Still, 2 years later, not certain that Larry has seen the movie.
Yeah.
We've been trying to get Larry on
He
the
hasn't
show
said one
for a while
goddamn
now.
thing
We're gonna
about
force
it,
him.
Larry.
Have you seen Beneath?
No.
Well, then you can wait
funny.
to
Well, I'm
watch it.
doing it on
You can-
purpose.
you
I'm
can
not
wait to
watching
watch it. It's a
Beneath until
protest.
he says he saw the battery.
So you didn't meet to direct him for that scene. You did it over the phone.
Yeah. So originally I wanted him to be Jerry. And then I found his email address online. I mean, I feel terrible about the way I contacted him, because I had heard that Ty West had asked, his film teacher for his number or whatever. So I was like, fuck it, I'll do that. I'll just email him. And I did. And then he was really, really kind, and he kept emailing me back no matter how many times I emailed him. And then I wanted him to play Jerry. And then he was like, I didn't hear from him. And I knew a really talented actor from school. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to give it to Niels. And then after I told Niels, I got an email from Larry. Yeah, I can do it like this day. And I was like, you know what? I've already cast somebody. I'm sorry. But I have a voiceover role. And he's like, great. And then he did it. He just did it. He recorded in his house and sent me the files. It was awesome.
Wow.
That's cool.
Man, he is such a good guy.
But if you ever do a sequel, he has to. You have to.
I'm
try
gonna
to
write
get
The
him.
Orchard just
Yeah,
so
you gotta
Larry
get
has
him.
to play Frank,
Nice.
which will be
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
governor, only not. I'll subvert it some way.
But it's like, not to put too fine of a point on it, but what Larry does is, I got to do it. Like, it's our job. It's all of our jobs. Rob turned me on to this guy. I'm sure that he's been spoken about on this podcast.
Oh yeah, we talk about him a
But
lot.
I cannot stress enough.
Larry.
There is no, I'm not talking about Larry right now.
Oh.
There's certain people that you see. It's great that Jeremy got the movie made, because then it makes our job to advocate easier, because I can go, watch this movie, just give it 90 minutes, trust me. If you don't like it, I'm a piece of shit. Whatever, fine. Right. Now you know what I'm into. Right. We can never talk again about it if you don't want. But there's certain people where you go like, why the fuck isn't Steve Daniels making a feature film? Why doesn't everybody know he is? And when you're talking about this stuff where you've got to submit and there are people voting, like I watch all these ABCs of Death and I'm friends with the guys that made it. I'm not trying to shit on their parade. Right. But everything that Steve Daniels does is better than any of the things that were in that first movie. He's been making phenomenal, and he submits every time, and he doesn't get enough. It's like a popularity contest. Is he the guy who made the one with the tech kind of creatures? Did he make one for ABC?
He did T for Termite for the first one.
Yeah, and the guy with the
like
shotgun.
Yeah,
that was a good film.
He was on Fangoria Blood Drive Volume 2.
Yes.
And I ended up becoming friends with all the guys because they were mostly on the East Coast. And, you know, Paul Solid, Will Rott, Adam Barnick, they were all part of that whole crew. Steve Daniels was the one that couldn't make it out. But he made this great little short that's on there, like a really scary short. Kept in touch with him. He's this dude from South Carolina, and he sent me a disc of like, he's just been making short films on a 16 millimeter camera for years. And they're like, you watch them and you're like, he's got nothing but cats and PBR, and he makes all these shorts on 16 millimeter, and they're like, you're watching Sam Raimi.
That was what I was just going to say. It's like the first time you saw Evil Dead and you're like, how the hell did he do that, get that shot?
And the fact that we've known him, I mean, I brought all his shorts over to AJ. I was like, you got to watch his kids' movies because they're amazing. And and I mean, God bless him. He listens to the show, so call it.
But he hasn't made a feature yet.
He hasn't gotten the opportunity, but he keeps entering all these contests. He keeps making shorts. He keeps making all this great stuff. And yeah, it's like you see a filmmaker like that also never gives up. He's going to keep making movies no matter what.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that.
Our job's to do our part to make sure that Jeremy gets to make another movie. Right. Like seriously.
Oh, yeah.
That's if you see somebody that took some care with what they did that isn't a total douchebag, that made something that you can have that conversation with people. It's my job to try to do my part with all my friends to go, hey, I know that there might not be a lot of us, but we're really vocal when we care about something. Yeah. So we mean it.
I mean, that's why we do this.
Yeah. That's exactly what you guys do.
If you don't love it, you're wasting your time.
Well, that's why I don't shut up about Jugface and the Resolution and fucking Charlie's movie Crave. And honestly, you're talking about like the little voting thing. Like I made it to number 19 on that stupid Massify Perkins 14 thing with absolutely no like, like
fan base and like
not trying to do anything. And then there's people in the top 10. There's literally a guy, and one of the videos in the top 10 was a guy screaming in Times Square going, ah! And then he just sits there 24 hours a day going, hey, if you vote on my video, I'll vote on your video. If you vote on my video. So I'm like, this is already a completely nonsensical way to
and those
pick
are the same
best,
people that have gotten to make some movies that are now selling a personality.
And then you got like these guys that run Deadfest. They made these great shorts called The Last Video Store. I don't know if you guys have seen them. They're fucking. I mean, they are just they're just full of the life and love of 80s movies. They did M is for Magnetic Tape, and this guy literally owns a video store underground in a basement that's all horror sci-fi exploitation.
I've seen I think I've seen him on one. He's one on maybe Rewind This. I think they maybe have gone down.
He's on.
It's really cool, and it's all.
Or Just Your Tracking.
No, he's on. I think the second one.
Because that's the only one I've seen.
No, actually, he's not in that one.
Is he?
No, this is a different guy.
You sure?
Different guy. I saw Rewind This. Yeah.
Did you see the other one though? Just Your Tracking.
No, I didn't.
I think he's in one of those because he's built it underground.
He lives up in Edmonton.
Yeah,
I don't know. Anyway, but he owns a store, and it's like I go up there and I just walk in, and it's just like you died.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "You're my guest. Pick any movie off the shelf. It's yours."
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I was like, "You pick me one." He's like, "Here's Father's Day." And then I was like, for the Astron 6 guys. And then I was like, "Oh, I've still never seen George Romero's Martin." He goes, "I got it. It's out of print. Are you good at darts?" And I was like, "Pretty good." And so he brings it down to the bar and he puts it on the table and he's like, "If you win, you have Martin. If you lose, I'll sell it to you." And I lost, and he goes, "I was going to give it to you anyway." It was just nice guys, but they make these awesome. Like great like shorts that are just full of love, and that they just couldn't get enough votes to get in there. But I thought if that had been in there, that would have been in the middle of all these movies. This one moment where everyone goes, "Oh yeah, I remember loving movies like that." Like that. That's just kind of like
yeah. All right, so
zombies.
No,
before we go to questions,
go see The Battery.
Yeah, see The Battery, and
if you want,
and also just keep trying to make stuff that you give a shit about, and tell people about the stuff that you dug, and don't just say it because you think people want to hear it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes on Twitter, I just can't handle when a movie comes out and like one of these movies that like, and I'm not dissing Lone Ranger because I didn't see it. But you know when everyone starts hating it initially, and then you get the person going, no, it's the best movie ever, and then that cult swells. I'm just like, I don't care about any of that. Just if you really love it, go full force. If you don't, let it die and just move on. You know.
Yeah, as I said, if you guys have really dug into my film knowledge, you would have kicked me out of the studio already.
Battleship is a great movie.
The first 10 minutes.
And on that note,
great.
guys.
Chicken burrito.
Yeah, first 10 minutes.
Forever.
Okay, so what do we want to discuss? We want to talk about obscure or your favorite things that in zombie stuff? What is it quick?
Yeah, we could just, well, we have questions for Jeremy from people. But why don't let's just throw out a few titles that we want to recommend in the zombie genre, because I really don't have many. Rebekah's who I turn to for deep cuts. So.
Okay, my deep cuts. So Versus, it's a Japanese film, 2000, it's zombies and mobsters. So good.
I saw the cover and I didn't want to see that. You couldn't pay me money to see that movie based on that cover. Like the guy with the sword and it's all white cover. It looks so stupid.
I've caught pieces of it on cable and I was like, this movie's fucking crazy.
I've heard it's good. I've heard it's good.
I highly recommend it. I have no idea who directed it. I'm not good with my Japanese directors.
Probably the guys who did Resolution, because their cover sucked ass too. And I didn't want to see their movie either.
You know what Justin said to me? He's like, I don't know I can't remember which one it is, but they always shit on our key art.
It's me. It's
Elric.
No, because when I saw the other one where it's like the creature thing, that was fine. But
he's got a valid point.
We shit on all key art because that's always my biggest hang up with a movie.
These are the concessions you have to make. And
but regardless of that, the reason I say it's important is because it was not personal. I looked at a picture and actively decided I would never watch that movie.
Right,
that
you
is
judged
important.
a book by its cover.
But I would but with film, there's too many movies.
It looks like a torture film to me, and so I turned it away.
That's why it's important.
They know that too.
That's why it's important. And whereas their other image, I was like, oh, cool, what is this? It's
but
mysterious.
then again, their other image is mysterious, but that would not have sold as many boxes as the cover that they went with.
Yeah, it's not even a diss on them. It's that I would never have seen their film ever. Had somebody not, I never would have pushed play ever. And that's one of my favorite films last year. So it's just a fact. It's
I know. That's the process. I mean, I'm sure that's going to happen with me. There's going to be at some point some alternative art made for the battery that makes it look like it's not the thing it is.
It'll be you in an alley in a tunnel screaming as you're being pulled back by zombies.
Yes, I'll be pulled under
with
a
your
bed.
baseball bat.
So our new show researcher, Dick, just pointed out to me that the guy who did Versus is the same guy who did Midnight Meat Train. And he has another film coming out soon.
The director?
That's very interesting. It's the same director, and he has another film coming out this year, doesn't he?
What did he just do? Didn't he just
No
do
One
that?
Lives. He has No One Lives coming out. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I heard good things about that. That's cool.
So, but Versus, awesome. I absolutely love that one. And I like Midnight Meat Train, so that makes sense too. So also Sugar Hill. And this is one from the 70s that not a lot of people have heard of. This is a blaxploitation zombie film. Yeah. And it roots itself much more in voodoo than a lot of the zombie films from the 70s. But again, it's a lot of fun, and it's a nice blending of a whole bunch of different exploitation subcultures. Fido, I don't think is that unknown, but I always recommend it.
Should be a 20-minute film.
I turned it off after 20-minute film.
It's a total 20-minute movie. It would be a great 20-minute movie.
I fell asleep after 20 minutes.
I can stay with it. I Sell the Dead, I already talked about. Death Dream.
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan. I think that's a good
unknown one, but definitely if you have not seen Death Dream, and it also goes.
That's what I want from
Dead of Night.
Dead of Night. That's what I want from zombie films. I do desire that kind of. If it's not an emotional connection, I do want something that's being said about the state of why you're giving me a zombie film. And I felt Death Dream. If it's talking about a war, or if it's talking about how we feel about loved ones coming back and things like that, I feel like that film really had. Bob Clark's great, and that's not even one of his best films, and yet it still has something really at the root of it that's really an interesting movie.
Stacy is another weird Japanese one.
I've heard of
it's through Synapse, and it's one of these ones where people will recognize the box cover, but they've never seen it. It's another Japanese one, and I don't know why I like the Japanese zombie films. I guess because they do something different with it, and it becomes like a different cultural thing. But with Stacy, it's a zombie virus, but it can only attack like 13-year-old girls. So it's all of these teenage girls across the country become zombies. And it's an interesting concept.
Minstrel thing?
Not quite, although you could definitely perceive that. Because of the culture, there's definitely like a weird Lolita thing going on because they've all got pigtails.
They're rapey.
Not as much, but
boring and rapey.
Yeah, it's no. That's a whole another zombie director.
Okay. Oh, I thought.
But No, this one, it's campy and over the top and pretty gory, but it's definitely worth a look. And then the last one I'm going to mention, I'm actually writing an article on in the new Gore Zone, so I won't give too much on it, is called Demonium. And it is a German film from 2001. And researcher, the name of the guy, it's Andreas or Agnes, something like that. But the director mostly does these like super, super hyper gory films. And this one is his like super, super hyper gory murder mystery with zombies.
I'm surprised. I'm really surprised in you because you did not mention the aerobic sequence where the aerobic stars in Italy get attacked by zombies who are the worst zombies who just have like little brown makeup spots. Have you seen Nightmare City?
No.
Nightmare City is not a great movie, but it is a fun one because...
Such arrogance coming from you.
It is, I know.
It is
a lot of fun though because it has things, it's kind of World War Z before World War Z. It's like a whole city getting taken down by zombies. Super ambitious. Huge period, like set pieces of like giant city things happening and cars crashing, but the zombies are literally people with a couple brown dots on it. Oh, it's a zombie. Like no money put towards the actual makeup. But it's an interesting film. I think Burial Ground is like aesthetically one of the most interesting. It's totally stupid, like the plot. But Burial Ground is like is the most Fulci, non-Fulci film.
I own the German
Burial Ground,
hardbox of
Night
that.
of Terrors or something.
Yeah, and I've never brought myself to watch it.
Yeah, it took a long time to find one when I was looking for it. But that's an interesting one. Messiah of Evil, you've talked about before. That's that's a great film, and no one talks about it as a zombie.
Zombies or I consider it cannibals.
But they're all zombies. They're all
right.
like,
right.
That's a zombie.
So,
if it makes that noise.
But it's like the whole town. I see. There's a weird line. They're definitely possessed by something, but they seem more cannibal-like because they're still functioning.
And one of my all-time best experiences watching a movie, Chud 2. Oh, no, that's my least favorite movie in the history of cinema, Chud 2.
Chud?
But the Chud, I hated that film with like a deep, fiery passion I can't even articulate.
There just seems to be like such bigger things to take down than
But the Chud.
Chud 2.
But the Chud, I'm coming. No, I saw it because I hadn't seen Chud. I hadn't seen Chud when I saw Bud the Chud, and I really didn't know what I was watching, and it really hurt me as a young person.
It's a really boring film.
But then there's like movies that I didn't like, but I think still deserve some like good kind of push. Because I thought Dead Girl. I didn't enjoy watching Dead Girl at all.
Yeah.
And yet I really, but yeah, exactly. And but I liked that they were trying something different, and it felt like a feasible idea of what could happen with some assholes. But I didn't like watching it, and I wouldn't necessarily even go to someone, hey, you got to see that movie. And yet I kind of admired it and thought it was interesting.
I feel the same way. I think it's a cool movie, but it took me 2 tries to watch it just because of how despicable the characters are. Yeah.
I will. Oh, sorry.
No.
After
I will say that the wank scene in the Battery originally was way more than a wank.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It got to that point. It got
on the script level or
on the the script level.
Okay,
Never. Yeah, I came to my senses. Okay, well, he pins her to the hood of the car.
Then what happened?
Then he takes a tie down like some and straps her to the hood of the car.
And then what happened?
And he pulls a condom out of his pocket.
AJ, what's that shaking
your neighbor from upstairs come down
right now?
What?
There's like some sort of shaking motion happening under the table there.
No, Ben ends up killing him right before he does something really, really aggressive, and it just like made Mickey was already unsympathetic. And it was just too far. I'm glad I came to my senses before that because now it's funny, and before it was just.
Well, that's one thing that I like about the movie in general so much. You get right to the part when it stops feeling humane, right? Like right at the line when you blow her away. Spoiler alert! Sorry, it's a zombie. They're gonna fucking get shot.
The editing of that scene was the hardest.
Elric was just discussing the idea of pushing the zombie film to where we think it would most likely go in real life. And and this is going to come out as a weird title, from Masters of Horror, The Dance of the Dead. And everybody like completely dogged on this one and hated it when it came out. But I really liked it just because if there was one thing that I could see society doing in our current capabilities that is closest to a zombie, it is reanimating the dead for entertainment purposes. And I loved it in that regard. I loved the idea that they created loopies and they were giving them this drug and then electrocuting them with cattle prods, and it would make the dead people dance. And that was the whole concept, was you went to this club to watch it. And I loved that element just because it crossed the line of humanity, which you were just talking about. And that is the one thing that I could actually see being feasible and questionable in our society.
I remember what Joe Dante was saying once about zombies' popularity. He talked about how they're always cyclical. He's like, if you look through history, it's always at periods of great unemployment And he said they're just unemployed people, and everyone's scared of the unemployed. No one wants to be around them. Yeah. They're coming towards the 1%, and they're shuffling just like poor people. And I always think there's certain truisms in that. The Walking Dead.
There comes times when culturally we have to get away from, and usually times where there's some terrible tragedy when we want escapism, and more than any other genre, I think horror naturally, and I think it's one of the healthiest things about it, it gets impacted by this without even speaking about it. Our interests start going away from human horror, and we start getting more into things like zombies, which for people that are trying to make a point exists there, like we were talking about satirically, but you start getting into monsters or aliens or outer space, and then slowly start veering back towards people are the biggest monster of all.
Right.
And then,
there was that period where the serial killer film was so dominant. That scary thing. But then there's other times where I don't want to watch that because that's real.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
There was a mock doc that was done a couple of years ago, and the name is completely escaping me, but I reviewed it for Fango, and I really liked it. But it was about zombies who have been assimilated back into society, and they can function, but they're given these lower end jobs because they're...
Oh, yeah. Is that Otto?
No, it's not Otto. I didn't like Otto. I got to remember the name of this.
It
was called like An American Zombie. Yeah. I think that was just the name of it, but it was obviously like a giant parable for immigrants coming in and how, we're making them all work in the fields and they all have to work fast foods and things like that. Because they're all talking about how, they're skilled, but they have no recollection of their other life. So they have no one fighting for them. And I remember thinking that it was a really poetic way to present immigration in that regard. And
they're almost like a blank shell we can project whatever is going on onto. Unlike vampires and other creatures, zombies do feel like a little, hey, what's going on right now? We can put that, lump them in together. It's interesting. But they really have been every 20 years. They come back with a vengeance, Because I guess after Day of the Dead, they were kind of probably really dead for a while, right?
Yeah.
There's probably a really quiet period where zombies weren't, I think of the 80s, I don't think of it, but, the zombie films in the 80s weren't zombie, it's like Night of the Creeps. Well, so it's really like a little alien in you, bringing you back.
That's part of the cycle where you will always have the rebirth of the genre, and it will be scary for a while, but then it will become self-aware, and then it will become campy, and that's when you get the Night of the Creeps and Night of the Comet and things like that.
Vampires just suffered that from, Twilight and True Blood.
That's what we were talking about, 28 Days Later. When you see the priest pop up in the church, you're like, whoa!
Yeah.
And it had been in 10 years since you'd seen something like that, where you're like, because we're now ingesting Chainsaw remake and prequel, and all of a sudden this dude stands up and you're like, holy shit! And that gets scary for a while, and then we go back, and then it stops.
Yeah. Well, you also have something like Danny Boyle, who
not familiar.
It's always great when a director dips his toe into a genre that he's maybe is not his bread and butter, because he's going to bring something else aesthetically to it. And Alex Garland, I think he's a fucking brilliant novelist, and I'm sad that he's not writing novels anymore, because he can make more money writing scripts and shit quicker. But that screenplay is incredible. It's just a brilliant script. And that's the thing about the genre too. It just needs more artists.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times, where we talk about how our favorite horror films tend to be by directors who've never made another horror film, because Friedkin, Polanski, a lot of these Polanski kind of did more. But it is interesting. But I think the problem is if that's all you want to make, like, oh, I'm just a horror filmmaker, that means you're always going to be borrowing tropes. You need to kind of step outside that.
It goes back to the exact same issue. You're either staying in that zone, so you're self-professing that you're selling an image.
Right.
I'm this guy. I do this thing. And then, God forbid, if you should want to make something that isn't just specifically genre or
like
genre
music
light,
from the heart or something.
Then, you're shitting on your audience. Yeah. You don't care about the people that put you there as though they put you there, which they didn't.
Right.
But it's just, I just want a sincerity level to be met.
Yeah.
I don't care what it is. If it can fail in every department, but if it's sincere, then I can get behind it.
Yeah.
All right.
You moved.
Excellent, guys.
Thank you.
My quick moments. Obscure ones. Yeah. Super quick. I consider Mulberry Street a zombie movie, even though they're
rat
zombies. Yeah. I think that's a pretty cool one if you haven't seen it.
Stakeland's kind of too. He kind of did it twice, 2 in a row there.
Yeah.
Oh, get away from me, AJ.
Do you have a favorite?
A favorite?
Like if everyone has one zombie film, they're like, yeah, that's probably my favorite zombie film.
Day of the Dead. The original, the Romero one, is one of my favorites. Modern Wreck. I love the first Wreck.
That's fine.
I think it's solid. The other obscure one I wanted to bring up was Dave Parker's first movie, The Dead Hate the Living, which is a full moon movie.
One?
Yeah.
Haven't seen that.
Just because, I remember at the time it got a little bit of flack because it was a little self-referential, like it referenced other zombie movies, but zombie movies weren't really a popular thing at the time. I just think it's really unique. And compared to everything else that Full Moon was doing at the time, like, little killer puppets or, subspecies movies or whatever, I just thought it was so unique and different. And I think it actually plays really nice now. It's got that Italian, like that Fulci Argento style of colors and all that stuff. It's a pretty neat little debut feature, and it's got some wicked looking zombies in it. So
I remember seeing for Dawn of the Dead, the first time you see that movie, and you're young, you're just like, this is the cool, they're in a mall. It was so refreshing and it was funny. There was comedy. There's that montage sequence where it's like, this is what you would do, Yeah. I just thought that film was so rich. Like, I haven't watched it in a few years, but when I first saw that would have been my favorite zombie film and probably would still be. It's a great film. Do you guys have any reference like that?
A Night is my favorite. Still
the original
my favorite.
Night?
Yeah, and not the Tom Savini, the original.
The Colorized?
I've gone back and found
Colorized, high five.
I love them both. They're both great.
Night's great. I got a couple obscure ones. They're not that obscure. Pontypool. Everybody should see Pontypool.
Yeah, that's on my list too.
Fantastic.
Such a good one.
I Love Sarah Jane. Short.
Yeah.
You haven't seen I Love Sarah Jane?
Who directed that? That's
God, he did Hesher.
Yeah, the director of Hesher did this short.
Hesher, and I haven't seen the film.
You haven't seen I Love Sarah Jane?
Reflexes.
It's pretty great.
Dick was like right on that.
I Love Sarah Jane was maybe and I'm not huge into short films because I feel like they're so hard to market. They're so hard to make, to do anything with. I always get frustrated. And I go, just make a feature. The amount of money people spend on shorts, I'm like, you can make a feature, and then you could potentially sell it.
Spencer Susser.
Spencer Susser, you made a phenomenal short film. It's so good that I almost didn't want to make The Battery because it captured all those little moments. It felt so real and so genuine to me.
I Love You, Sarah Jane.
I Love You, Sarah Jane. Or I Love Sarah Jane. But it's absolutely beautiful and feels real and feels authentic and feels lived in and it's just beautiful. And the only other thing I want to say is outside of movies, the novel The Reapers Are the Angels by Alden Bell. I've actually got people on the rights right now and seeing if it's available because it's that beautiful. It's just a beautiful, very kind of Cormac McCarthy-esque Southern Gothic zombie novel with a 15-year-old girl as the protagonist who just kicks fucking ass and it just reads like a movie. It just needs to be made. And I honestly thought for a while, I was like, I should just kind of write this on spec and see if anything happens with it. And then everyone said the zombie genre is dead. And then of course The Walking Dead hit and World War Z was a success. And now I'm like, someone's gonna tap that thing soon because it's really, really good.
Yeah, I was thinking, it's funny, all of us think of the first zombie films we saw, but probably a lot of us, I know my first horror film, probably saw the segment of Creepshow super early, with Ted Danson coming back.
Yeah.
And that's creepy. That's a creepy story,
I saw Creepshow 2 before I saw the first one.
Really?
Strangely.
Was there? There's no zombie star in that.
Well,
The guy.
That's the one with the raft, right?
Hey, lady, thanks.
Thanks for the ride, lady.
Yeah, it has the
Do you know where
raft.
he's going? What town is he going to?
I don't know.
It's my
but
dream trivia
there's
question.
one in the follow up to that sequel. There's a really nice compact story in the third Creepshow franchise entry about
I've seen
a guy
that in
with his
Spanish.
radio.
So with the guy talking to the radio?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that one.
That's what. Did you have a favorite?
Well,
zombie?
we're about the same age, so like.
I'm younger than you, just for
I
the
know
record, for anyone listening.
I know, but you
By
look
4 months.
But I look younger than you.
I don't
I'm
dye
so
my
much
beard.
more
I can't all
handsome.
afford dye from our sacrament residuals.
A lot of people talk about Night. Oh man, I'm never going to see those. And most people that I know say that Day of the Dead is of the original trilogy. But yeah, I got to go with Dawn because it taps into
Old Man Hi-Fi.
It taps into the same stuff for me that movies outside of the genre do. And to me, there's this sort of magical realism that occurs from 1978 to 1994, mostly 80s. And that movie keys into a sort of aesthetic vibe, much like The Visitor did, which is coming out from Draft House Films later on this year.
So did you like that?
I love The Visitor.
Yeah,
man.
I saw it with 3 people and they hated it. And I was
That's fine.
I was so excited when I walked out there. Like, I don't get to see movies like this for the first time anymore. Like, I experienced that for the first time. Are you kidding me? You didn't love that?
So
and they were all down, and I was like,
is
really
this the Lance Hendrickson one? Wow.
He's the basketball coach. He's the manager of an Atlanta basketball team.
But
How great is that?
To be fair, what they're shooting in is they were shooting there when I was born.
Yeah.
In the town I was born in, so it looked exactly like where I grew up, exactly. And so I just keyed into that a little bit. But yeah, Dawn of the Dead. I know you mentioned Night of the Creeps, but I remember that's a classic example of back when we had these mom and pop video stores where my parents would take me in and we'd be on our way to going to get the Goonies, and I'd sneak over to the horror section and I'd see the cases, and I wasn't allowed to watch them. But I was like, when I grew up, that's mine, that's mine, that's mine. And one of them that I kept seeing was Night of the Creeps. My sister, who's 12 years older than me, is babysitting me one night while they go out. And she's like, what do you want us? Let's go rent a movie. We won't tell mom and dad what it is. First thing I picked, boom, the one with the guy with the rose and the tux.
Yeah.
And so I was introduced to Fred Decker's movie less than a year after it came out. And it blew my mind. I didn't know. And I was like, I'm going to grow a mustache one day. This is the coolest motherfucker in the world. And I know it's a play on the tropes, and it's playing into also 50s B movies. But I love Night of the Creeps so much.
He's on our top 5 guest list that we want. And I know you know him, so we're hoping this year. He's definitely one of the 3 or 4 people. Him and Oscar Elliott.
And Jeremy, and now you got
David Lynch is mine.
Oh, yeah. He'd be hard to.
Yeah. One day.
As long as he brings coffee.
One day.
Fucking iPhone. I'll tell you now, that Twin Peaks rumor that got squashed is not going to get squashed. I'm just guarantee you that they are sharpening all the AMC, Showtime. Somebody's going to bite. Somebody is going to lure him back to do TV. It's complete. It might not be Twin Peaks like what people want.
Yeah.
It'll be Inland Empire Twin Peaks, which might not be what people want, but he will do something like that. I just would put any money on it. He's just too cyclical because he said 25 years ago, and now it's 25 years. He's going to do it. It's how he works as an artist. Anyway,
all right,
because I know him so intimately.
Obviously. All right, let's do questions before we all pass out here.
Yes, because it's almost 11 o'clock here, kids.
Oh my God, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, I can answer the first one. Jeremy and I found out we are exactly the same height.
Nice.
That is exciting. Did you guys draw lines on the walls?
Obviously.
They're giving each other back rubs
No, he
now.
asked me. He asked me how tall
Via
I was.
text late one night. No, it was actually during the day, wasn't it?
I don't
Why are you
remember
so
what time
embarrassed?
it
Why are you acting
was.
like you don't want to be my best friend?
I do want to
Fuck
be
you.
your best.
He's
I
had a
love you.
long day of work.
No, you
Damn
just
it.
said it was close to 11, and then I started looking at something, and then I didn't know what you were saying, and then I just was like
And he was
Elric's
touching
texting,
you.
and
You
then
lost
no one's
for a
paying
minute.
attention anymore. This shit has gone
Is
off
this still
the
going
rails.
on?
Yes.
What's everyone still doing?
All right,
Don't go see the
Quick
battery.
fire. This
questions,
is quick fire to
Quick
end.
fire questions. All right, let's see.
The guy who is recording this just hung himself and opened the gates of podcast hell. I just want everyone to know that.
Okay, we're on the Facebook page. Chris Kessler, he says, I just want to know how fun it was to film the scene where Jeremy drunkenly sings and dances to the Rock Plaza Central song. Scene is so great, which I agree.
It was super fun. It was nighttime. We were in the woods. I'm trying to barrel through these. It was nighttime. We were in the woods. There was no lights. So as soon as it got dark, you were like in the fucking dark. Like the panthers and the werewolves were there. You knew they were in the woods. They were going to eat you. So we just tried to really run through that. I wrote that scene in the script. It says he dances to the anthem for the Already Defeated. And I didn't even know those people yet. And I was like, I'm doing this. And we were going to shoot a version where he doesn't sing, he just dances in case we couldn't get the song. And then we were scared because it was so dark. We just did the where I sing and then hoped we could get the rights. And we did, which was
Thankfully,
great.
it worked out. Yeah. Where was that house? Was that a location or something that you
That was at
guys-
an abandoned Girl Scout camp in Kent, Connecticut. It's like a 200-acre Girl Scout camp that's been decommissioned for like 19 years. And basically every building they're in is in that camp. We just turn the camera around and there's another building. Turn it around and there's another building.
Wow.
We just pretended they were all different locations.
Let's see. Dustin Sane heard of The Battery solely because of Killer POV. Checked it out. He thinks the movie's great, works as it is. But were there any big ideas or characters you had to cut due to limited budget, which you kind of answered? Or did you have it planned as being that minimal of a concept? Either way, phenomenal job. Can't wait for your next one.
Thanks, Dustin. No, it was always that small. There was a couple scenes we cut. Like we shot a kind of an homage to Dawn of the Dead where they're pilfering from a gas station, which is why everyone wonders why Ben smokes 2 cigarettes. It's because we shot a scene where Mickey goes to get cigarettes from this abandoned gas station. He's like, there's only fucking super slims. I'm not going to smoke these girly cigarettes. And Ben's like, I don't give a fuck. I'll smoke too. But we shot that scene twice over 2 nights and we just couldn't get it to work. There were too many lights that we couldn't show. And then there weren't enough lights that we needed. And it was just miserable and it looked like shit. So we had to cut it out.
Let's see. Barry Lowe asks, can you ask Jeremy if there is any plans for a European release of the movie? It is impossible to get a legal copy in the UK.
I appreciate your patience. Yes, we signed deals in Germany, the UK, France. So it's coming. We have an international sales rep, and we're making these deals as we speak slowly.
Yes. Do you have any control of the cover art for the foreign stuff? Because I remember AJ's crazy story about Horrible Way to Die, where you had the axe and all the bodies, and I always loved that story about like how wildly different it can be.
Honestly, I don't know yet. They haven't asked us about that. I don't care if there's a fucking Smurf taking a shit on the cover as long as people can watch it.
That's cool.
Because I'm tired. I feel so bad. People have been hearing about it for so long abroad, and they're just like being very patient. So if there's
a Smurf taking a shit on the cover,
I'm gonna lobby for it.
Let's see. I'm going to skip ahead a little just because we answered a lot of these.
That's the Criterion Passion of the Christ. The dump on Papa Smurf.
Our buddy Adam Barnick.
Here, text Justin and tell him we're running late.
Let's see. Adam was asking. He was asking about if you primarily started as an actor, which you kind of answered that's initially what you were after. But he also wants to know, just in general, foreign film influences, whether they're horror related or not, as a filmmaker in general.
I started as an actor, foreign films. The one that just sticks in my craw right now immediately, the only thing that comes to mind because I can't think straight is Dogtooth. I love Dogtooth so goddamn much. I made a shirt. I made my own Dogtooth shirt. There's a ton of
Did you see their follow-up? I never saw the follow-up.
I haven't seen Alps yet.
Yeah. It was great. Dogtooth was so original.
Dogtooth was phenomenal. There's a ton. I mean, I like Let the Right One In, older ones too. I just can't think right now. But yes, I love a bunch of shit.
Elliot Traeger asks, "What's up with Tex Montana?" Which is that your new movie short? What's the story
it's a new movie, but I'm not going to call it the follow up to The Battery. We hadn't touched a camera in 2 years, and we wanted to get the gang back together. So I said, I think we can make an absurdist comedy in 5 days for no money. Instead of going bigger than The Battery, we went smaller and still tried to make a feature. So we shot in the snow for 5 days. We made it. It's basically Anchorman meets Grizzly Man, is what I like to call it. It's like it's a survival host who thinks who's got a lot of pride and then is terrible at surviving and gets into a lot of trouble.
Does that mean people will be able to see it?
Oh yeah. We're editing now, and we'll release it somehow within the year.
And I just want to mention Amanda Oakes, who's one of our listeners from the beginning. She was asking about the music and how it helped the story. You talked a little bit about that, but I figured this would be a good chance to mention
Zena Gabby?
Yes. That's AJ.
Hello, Amanda.
There you go. I figured this would be a good chance to talk about that the music is available via the Battery website, correct? Yes. It's pretty much everything from the movie.
Yeah. So very quickly, I was a huge fan of the band Rock Plaza Central for years and years and years. I'd seen them a half a dozen times, and I was just in love with their music. I wrote most of the script to their music, and then I cut together a little locations video featuring some of their music. And this is why Twitter, no one can ever shit on Twitter, because I met AJ through Twitter. I'm touching his bicep right now. And the lead singer of Rock Plaza Central got to me and said, "Hey, I saw the video. That's really cool. Are you guys going to use some of the music in the movie too?" And I had no idea that was even possible. And he put me in contact with his record label, and we became collaborators kind of. And then I got drunk one night and I asked I emailed him. I'm like, "Hey, I think this song's in the public domain. Will you record a cover of Ain't No Grave?" And he sat in his house with his wife and kid and just recorded a cover of that song. That's the song that's in the opening credits. And then he was like, "I know another great band, The Parlor," and they just gave us their music for free. They're like, "Do what you want with it." And then Adam's friend is Wiseblood. He's the kind of electronica hip hop music you hear in it. And he gave us so many bands, just gave us music, El Cantador, Sun Hotel. And then that's just been the most beautiful thing, because I've been all over the world. And the first question I get is, "I love the music. Where can I get it?" And it's usually in a different language that they say that, but the music transcends that, which is a beautiful thing too. And I've gotten emails from the band saying, "Hey, our sales ticked up in the last month since the movie came out.
Cool.
I imagine that's
really
you.
cool.
So it's just a beautiful thing that they were willing to take a chance on our movie, and it's now coming back because people are really liking them. So
Could you release it as a soundtrack as per
Yeah,
se?
that's my next
Or is
I
question.
that too
really, really,
difficult?
really want to. I don't know how we would get through all the different labels and how that would work
Right.
out.
Yeah.
But thebatterymovie.com/music, every song's on there from top to bottom in order that they appear in the movie. You can make your own soundtrack.
That's cool.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
buy 'em.
Score stuff too? Or?
Scores on there
Yeah,
too.
cool.
Yeah.
Right
So make it, print a cool label, send me a picture, and I'll just say, cool, man.
I want a
Thanks for doing
vinyl of that soundtrack.
Yeah.
That's what I want. All right. So, yeah, that'll wrap it up for questions just because we're running really overboard. But
so we're going to save our what we're looking forward to in 2014 for next week.
yes, I have a whole long list and
Oh,
article
so
on
do
that, but
I,
that's
yeah.
okay. Oh, and let's thank. I always hate saying it. I feel it's like it's improper because I don't like saying the C word. But Bloody Cunt on Twitter. Thank you for sending us all.
I just forgot his name. Oh gosh, I talked to him on Facebook. He's so nice, and
He
I just
sent
forgot
all
his
of
name,
us copies of Killer Tongue.
which we have to watch
Yes.
this week.
And
I'm
it's
kind of excited about
I'm
it.
stoked because it's a triple feature with Ice Cream Man with Clint Howard and Jack Frost too.
I'm just honored that a fan sent us all DVDs.
Yeah. I actually want to watch Ice Cream Man. So thank you for Killer Tongue. We will watch it and discuss. Liar.
No,
You're not going to watch Killer
no one
Tongue?
wants to see ice cream. No, I watch
Of
that, but
course
no
I
one
do. It's
wants
Clint
to see
Howard.
ice cream.
I want to see
Howard.
it.
I literally want to
That's
see
it.
every movie.
Yeah.
Exactly. Anything else that we need to pimp and promote?
Yes. Well, the Rondo Award nominations opened up today.
I'd say you'd be better off leading with that one at the start of a show rather than at the end tail of a 3-hour show. You might get
anyone's-
lost.
If
If
you're still
anyone has
listening,
made it
then
this long, they're diehard
they're a
fans.
diehard fan. And they should nominate us for a Rondo. Yeah, our show.
I thought there was an email exchange about not going for a shameless plug, but I guess
No.
I'm on the losing end
You
of that.
misread it.
Okay. I said I wanted Jeremy to lead off, to sit down and go, you guys should be nominated for Rondo, like celebrity endorsements.
Why didn't you tell
I
him
could
this?
just say it right now. You can cut it into the beginning.
There you go.
Hey, you guys should be nominated for a Rondo Award. You know that?
AJ's holding a knife
deserve
looking
it.
like Jack Knife, Robert De Niro, circa 1984.
Is this the moment where he stabs me to death?
Okay. AJ?
I recommend wrapping this up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, really quickly, thank you for having
kidding, I
me on
just
the
like
show.
this
You
knife.
guys have been amazing, by the way, over the last year. It's really been insane to listen to the show every week, and how I mean, you almost mentioned my movie More Than Possession, which is insane. It's totally fucking
It's a new
insane.
drinking game.
But it's just been really, really great, and I really appreciate it. And I know that if you've seen my movie, which you have, it runs long, and you should have expected this fucking episode to run long. So I'm sorry it did, and it's been long-winded, but it's been a real pleasure sitting at the table with you.
No,
guys.
it's been
Thanks
great
so
to
much
have
for
you.
joining us.
Yeah, big
You're
thanks
welcome,
to Geek
guys.
Nation and
You're
AJ
welcome.
for starting this domino effect.
Yes.
Which
You're welcome for all that I do for all of you.
I feel honored.
Yeah. You can find Jeremy at the Jeremy.
Jeremy.com.
Jeremy Gardner.
So amazing.
The Battery Movie on Twitter.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
he's pretty active.
Watch Possession.
very
Watch
accessible.
Possession.
Right.
Tweet us all.
Or
Post
what's that strip
comments.
club you're going to tonight? You could see him there. if
Jumbo.
you're traveling.
Jumbos.
You
Yeah.
can travel
Jumbos.
back 2 days in
Travel
time.
back 2 days and you can go
3
to
days in
Jumbo's.
time.
Yes,
You
the
can meet him
directors
at
of
Jumbo's.
Resolution in Spring are sitting here looking at partially clothed boobs, listening to Joy Division or something, says Justin Benson.
That's where we're
is
going right now,
Jumbos.
so-
Exactly.
So let's go watch
that
some
note,
girls half stripped to
Thanks for
Tom
recording
Waits.
us. Thanks for sticking around for this long.
Thanks
we
for tolerating
We're
us.
putting the promise down. I think we can do an hour-long show next week.
I don't
Bullshit.
believe
Oh,
you. I've
shit.
listened to this show. I've been
I think
on
we
this
could do
show.
1 hour.
This is like the average length
If
of the
you
shows
make an
that I'm on. I
hour-long
don't
show,
even
how am I
talk.
going to get through my 8-hour work shift
That's
at a
true.
restaurant?
Actually, tell people before we end. I do want to end with this because you did tell me something, and I really like that you said. He said about your Christmas vacation. That was a great compliment/complaint.
Yeah, well, I was driving to Rhode Island on Christmas Day. It was a 2-hour drive. I was super excited to listen to the year-end episode, and the fucking thing wouldn't download on any platform. iTunes, Downcast. I tried to go to the Bloodcasts and get it the other way. No, didn't happen. So I had to listen to it in 20-minute pieces while I was polishing silverware at work over a full week after Christmas, which wasn't as cool.
But I think that's pretty cool that you're
love
trying.
your devotion.
Yeah,
The
you know, the
dedication,
internet's a funny
man.
thing. Sometimes it works, but it is cool that you were trying.
You haven't seen the picture of my phone in a water glass
Yeah,
because
totally.
it's like an amplifier. It was next to the big pile of silverware that I have to fucking polish every day because that's
Why are
the
you
life
looking
of
at
an
me?
independent filmmaker.
Yeah.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next week with our guest, Anthony DeBlasi.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Looking forward to that.
And we'll be discussing some Clive Barker stuff and
Clive
so forth.
Barker episode. Yeah.
Speaking of which, the new issue of Fangoria
Fangoria.
is.
Check that out.
some good
It's got Nightbreed on the cover.
Yeah, Cronenberg rocking out on the
cover.
Yeah,
I know. Clive Barker follows me on Twitter.
Show off. All right, we'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
God bless the battery.